Okay, we're going to go ahead and get this work session started. What we're going to do is discuss, have a discussion regarding the next steps for hiring an interim superintendent. And at this point, I think the board members agree we need to get somebody in that leadership position soon. So we're going to begin by opening this up. And Nikki, were you going to come on up and...
How you doing, Nikki?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Got a big crowd in the room tonight, a lot of board members here.
Yeah.
My favorite crowd.
Make sure this thing's on.
Better? Okay. So let me just sort of recap. We've decided on a date, which is Thursday, the 27th, from 3 to 8. In the last meeting, you identified 3 candidates that you'd like to interview. And so my first question for you is, what do you want that process on Thursday evening to look like? So for example, do you want to meet with each candidate for an hour sequentially and then debrief all at the end? Or do you want to see one candidate, debrief, see another candidate, debrief, and then see the last candidate and debrief?
I think for me personally, going through these for a number of years, I think it's always been effective in the interviews I've done that we do a period of time, say 45 minutes or whatever you want to give, and then give us 10, 15 minutes to debrief, as you say, and then do that for each candidate, and then at the end have an overall, time for us to visit about all of them.
I like that.
What does debrief look like? Is that a public discussion right after an interview, or is that an executive session, or what does that look like?
I wonder what you've done in the past, first of all, because the interview itself is in a public session, because you've got a
Right.
quorum.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
I'm just not sure what a debriefing should look like about a candidate, and particularly with,
Yeah.
you're gonna be, it's on camera,
Yeah.
it's,
Right.
I'm, so I
So-
like the idea, but I.
For this setting, that may not be the best thing. Maybe we'd have a chance to interview, and then we can, as a group, visit executive session talk. That would be best, I
Is
think.
that what
So-
you did when you hired Ken?
Yeah, with an executive session, I'm asking this to John, I guess. Legally, we can talk about the different candidates because it's employment, but we're not making any decisions in there. We're just
No.
discussing, which is in a sense debriefing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, I
That does
retract.
change the process.
What's that?
What do you recommend? What have you seen?
I would recommend that you see candidate sequentially and then debrief at the end in executive session where you discuss the candidates and come back into open session and decide on a final.
Amen. That sounds good.
Okay.
For me, I don't know. John?
No,
Yeah.
I just didn't do it 1, 2, 3.
Yep. That makes sense.
So in terms of the selection process itself, would you like just to have a board interview with the interim candidates?
That's my preference.
Okay.
I mean, my memory of when we interviewed for the full-time super last time, we had community members in for half a day. And while I think it's helpful, I just don't know for the amount of time we've got, it really will be helpful.
Okay.
I'm happy to listen to whatever you think. You're smarter than I am about this.
Personally, I think you and I visited. I can go either way. It certainly makes sense on one level that as a board, I think we've had a lot of feedback over these last weeks about the candidate and the type of person we're looking for. We've had input already from staff and community about this. And then going back to when we hired Dr. Haptonstall, we certainly have I think a pretty good feel what we're all looking for now. But to have some folks there, it can only add to it. But I would agree with John that we don't want to. I don't think we want to do anything that's going to drag this out further than we already have.
Okay.
So we had the whole board with the candidate, and then we just rotated through the questions. So we didn't have just one person asking them.
Right.
And that was,
But she wants to know: do we want other people than just the board here to do that? Do we want staff or community people to join us in that questioning process?
we didn't, I don't remember we had that before.
No, we didn't then, but we had also at that point, we had focus groups and we had,
Right.
remember, we had all those groups. So this time would be, we wouldn't have that.
I think for an interim, for someone who's going to be in the job between 8 and 9 months, if we're lucky, if they start right away, that you don't need a full-blown process.
Okay.
So to select this candidate, if you just want to do the board interview, that's what I'd like your feedback on now.
I think, because of what you said, I think that would be fine. I mean, I'm for that, just the board. I don't know what Tom and Amy feel about that. We can get their feedback unless they see it differently.
In other words, you want us to answer the question.
That's right.
Okay.
Good for you.
All right, so we'll have the board interview on the 27th. In terms of questions, I sent you a list, and I'm wondering how you want to try to narrow that down.
Well, I'll throw my idea
Great.
to you guys. Just a thought for the process. And I go back to my experience of interviewing as a principal with our staff, and we were looking for support staff, teaching staff, and we've gone through anywhere from the SRI interview process where there are definite answers you're looking for from a candidate to, as Paul said, we each take questions and we have questions. One method I found over the years that was really effective, and it took us as questionnaires out of the loop, is present our candidates with 3, 4, 5 topics, give or take a couple, and ask them, give it to them ahead of time, and let them just come in and present to us. And we can do follow-up questions, like we may have a question about school finance, about communication, or a topic area about community relations, whatever we all decide, and come up with those, like I said, 5, 6, 7 topic areas, and then let our candidates just go with them as they want. They'll have, 45 minutes, and then along the way, if we want to ask clarifying questions individually, like we do with presentations, we can certainly go ahead and do that. And that's always been real effective. Now, the only question I would have, I think Tom would say this: if we do that, let's say you're presenter A, and you talk about school finance, and we have some clarifying questions. And then candidate B comes in and they're focusing on community relations, and we ask clarifying questions, but we haven't asked the same clarifying questions. Are we obligated that's always one of the concerns. Are we obligated to ask the exact same questions? If so, then it might be best to have scripted questions. But if not, personally, I like that openness, because then you see what you really have in the candidates. The other ones, a lot of people are good question answers. I mean, they can become very polished over the years of knowing how to answer typical standard interview questions. But if you leave it to them, you kind of.
I thought we mixed both of those. I mean, we had some scenario,
We had scenarios, too.
and then we had the specific questions that targeted the D51 learning model.
And I'm not even saying, target, that was just an idea, but getting back to my point, do we have to ask the same questions of each person or just give them the same topics?
We have to do both. So if we're going to give them topics, we should be prepared to say, talk about each one of these topics, and every candidate gets the same opportunity. Because that's what you want in a
Sure.
selection process, is you want the same opportunity for each candidate to demonstrate their knowledge, skills, and abilities.
Okay. What about
So let me follow up with Doug's question, because I really hated the superintendent process last time. I've told you that, and I've told my board members that, my fellow board members. But I like Doug's idea that what the sameness of it is we come up with 5 or 6 topics, and the questions you've given us sort of lend to different areas. So you could talk about communications piece, and you could talk about leadership on an interim basis and where they'd start and that sort of stuff. But I'd really like not to be limited in follow-up questions from a presentation. And if legally we're not showing a bias, Matt Deers presents on the 5 topics, and we can ask questions on those 5 topics as they roll out, because his going to be different than the other 2. I like that format if we can do it.
Follow-up questions about what somebody has said or presented are always okay.
Okay.
Because you're getting clarifying questions. If you go off script and ask something, what do you like to do for fun, for example, that's a question not related to the interview itself that you would then want to ask that of every candidate.
Okay.
We can't ask their age and marital status and things like that, you don't think?
We'll be reviewing those things as well, about things that we
No,
can't
that was a joke. That was a bad one. No, but I like Doug's idea, quite honestly, because I think we're able to pick some areas, and they can give us, each one can give us their best ideas about an interim position and the District 51 learning model.
Yeah.
And then we, as a board, would have the opportunity to follow up with questions after that presentation.
And I found, just through my own experience, and we did this for many years, it really is, first off, the candidates always seem to enjoy that more because it really lets them go with it. And from our perspectives, it gives a real view of their strengths and their passion and areas that they feel comfortable with. Like, again, you can go back to asking standard questions, and there's usually standard answers. And a lot of people are really prepared, particularly at this level, know what those are. And this way, when you leave it up to them, they're kind of on their own. Now, again, not to surprise them, I'd let them know the day or 2 before or whatever. Here are the topic areas. We're going to have clarifying questions. You have 45 minutes, and we want you to hit each area.
Okay. Do you, in addition to that, do you also want some standard questions other than an opening question, maybe where they talk about whatever, themselves, their background, why they're interested, or do you just want to go with the topics?
Well, I think something that would start off that who give us your professional background. Yeah, you're just that opening, so we know who you are just through your personal experiences, your professional background and interests, those kinds of generic things, and then from there, they still have. Yeah, that could be part of the 6 or 7 things we want them to respond to.
Okay.
I mean, that's just my point.
So a combination of 4 or 5 topics to talk about.
Or 6, if you think. I mean, and I'm actually happy to have these interviews go more than 45 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
If an hour is a better discussion, I'm fine with that too. I'm not.
Minutes apiece.
Just as long as we have like about a 5-10 minute break between them, so we can get up and stretch.
I think an hour would be wise. I think that gives you a little bit more flexibility with your time. And you certainly don't want to rush through these conversations.
Yeah.
And then build in a 5-minute break between.
So do you want us, we could throw out ideas right now about some topic areas, and say, we may come up with 20 and then say, oh, let's do, but like John mentioned some already, you could, just on leadership, talked about communications, and that can be internal staff communications, community communications.
In fact, the stuff you sent us has some really good topics. One has to do with communication, one has to do with moving the district forward and beginning to restore trust with.
There you go.
And I think we have different constituencies or stakeholders, or whatever the word is, about trust. I mean, and to trust is the community and its teachers and its administrators and its parents. I mean, there's a whole bunch.
It's just a topic of trust. You know, they'll tell us where they want to take that.
The District 51 learning model, I think, is a big thing for this board. And, you know, what's that look like under an interim with the horsepower we already got going? Then the next one you have is demonstrate strong relationship building and interpersonal skills. I never know what all those words mean, but, you know. But then I think a big question is the last area about the many components of running a large 22,000 kid, 3,000 employee, diverse voting base. I mean, it's a complicated job to run a district that does what this district does. So I'd like to. And if you look at the candidates, they come from real different backgrounds and places. So.
Okay.
One thing I'd like to, just out of curiosity, whether you're a teacher, you specialize in math or science, whatever you teach, and a doctor specializes, do they have an area in school, whether it's school finance, a little bit, what's their area of strength? Would it be public relations? Would it be curriculum? Would it be school finance? And people tend to gravitate. I noticed that in the dissertations, we had one candidate that had leadership and innovation. We had another one that had the interaction of, in the Catholic school system, the religious connections there. And so it would be just kind of nice to know, because that plays into the fit for our district a little bit also,
yeah.
what is their strength? And maybe communication would be it. It'd be.
Well, that could be something, instead of leading them that way, just address what would you say your strengths and the areas that you want to become better at. I mean, that was a question we always ask, so it fills in with what Paul just said, but it lets them go with it as opposed to us being leading. Dr. Amy? Good.
So
Now the real meeting starts.
Probably, we should summarize a little bit about where we've taken us already, Amy. So
Catch your
we're talking about this being a board interview process and without community and staff and all that. We're talking about probably an hour interview separated by a 10-minute break in between each and then some level of deliberation afterwards. We're talking about coming up with 6 or 5 question areas that each one of the candidates will come in and tell us their ideas about the district, and then the boards, rather than having us have written questions, then we have follow-up questions on the presentations that were done by the 3 candidates.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we've been, and some of the big topics are came out of ideas that Nikki sent around to us before anyway.
So the idea that we would not be up here spewing out questions, that we're going to give them 5, 6, 7, 8 topic areas that we're going to ask them to address within the hour.
Okay.
And then we would have clarifying questions along the way. And then, but some of them might be anything as generic as tell us about your professional work history, that kind of thing too. And we were just throwing ideas out at Nikki as far as some topic areas like school finance, community communications, how to build trust.
District, how do you get trust back in the community? District 51 learning model. One I like is just the complexity of running a large organization, and would ask each candidate to talk about the experience and thoughts about doing that going forward. But then we could, once again, ask clarifying questions and not be so scripted up here, and hopefully have a better conversation with 3 individuals.
So that I'm clear, these are public interviews. Do we do this with anyone who wants to join in? Or are these private? How does that work?
This would be the five of us, and the candidate would, if we want to put it in a circle, however we want to structure
Is it open, though? I mean,
it'd be an open meeting because we're all five here, and then after all the interviews, we would go into exec session to discuss it and debrief, and then come out if we feel at that point with some decision that we want to, or talk about a decision.
so we were talking about next Thursday, that 3 to
8.
Thanks, sorry, guys.
That's great.
Next week is really difficult. So we were talking about that. Are we sort of looking at that time slot?
3 to 8.
And then would that be just us for that whole time? Are we talking about having the stakeholder meeting piece of that during that time, or would that be earlier in the day?
We've actually talked about not doing stakeholder meetings.
Why is that?
I don't know, I just think it takes a huge amount of time, and I'm not sure I think on the interim soup, it's not as critical as hiring a full-time soup, so.
Whose time is it? I mean, it would be the candidate's time, and then the time, if, let's say we had a panel of some folks, a couple teachers, some leadership folks, some community folks, and not us, right? So it's not our time, it would be their time, and then the candidates for an hour. So I don't, that doesn't seem like a
Was
lot
that
of time
removed?
for
I
me.
thought that was part of it. I thought we were having the,
So I think what Amy's saying, if I understand it, maybe do that in the morning.
Well, I'm just
Earlier in the afternoon, not during the board time we've staked out,
Yeah.
10 to 1.
Let me just sort of throw out a devil's advocate. Nikki and I talked about this a little bit individually over the phone, and I can see why for this interim position we want to do this quickly and efficiently, but I like the idea of having other people at least weigh in. We ultimately have to make that decision. If they have an hour in the morning with the candidates, with or without one of us as a representative to be there to moderate or at least listen to the discussion, plus or minus, and to have them have thoughts about this. I'm not sure what the downside is.
did we originally discuss having stakeholders also do a part of?
No, my understanding is that what you all discussed before Amy got here was just doing the board interview.
Well, Amy, to your point, I have no problem doing it just so we keep it on the simple side, quite honestly. I mean, if we could get a group of stakeholders, and I'd almost not like to listen. I'd like to have them have the same sort of conversation that we're going to have and maybe give us some thoughts when we deliberate later on, if that's what you want to do. But, have Heather pick a couple of instructors, for example, some administration folk, maybe there's some people in town, between Palisade and Fruita.
So is there a downside to doing this?
I wouldn't think so. I think that's a good idea. I mean, I was thinking originally where we're going to try to tie a group of 8, 10, whatever, community people along with us and have this overwhelming group talking to a person. I like the idea of if we muster up some community and staff people who could give up some of their day. And as John said, you do something in the morning from 10 to 2 or whatever, and have them maybe do the same format, same kind of open-ended questions. Is that what you would think? Or would that have to be the same, or could that be different? Would they have more scripted questions? Or have them come with their own questions?
Yeah, I think if we decided to go this route, to have the stakeholder panel in the morning, once we identify those 10 to 12 folks who would be on that panel, have them submit questions. We would go through those questions to make sure that they're not duplicative in nature, or that, that's something that we can't ask. And it might be more of that traditional interview that we would.
I think it's a great idea. I don't think there's any downside to that.
And my sense also is do it early enough, if you do it, if I were a candidate, it'd be nice to have a couple hours before I was back on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think
And the way we did it before is that stakeholder group gave us their score sheets, and then we were able to look those over and see.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to score your candidates for this group. I want this group to talk about what they saw as strengths and weaknesses of each candidate, or what questions they may have about their knowledge, skills, and ability.
And then would the idea be that, so you have a community group in the morning, they're visiting with the candidates separate, we're coming in the afternoon, and then when would they get with us, or a spokesperson for that community group get with us to say, here's what we think? Would that be during our executive session? Is that how that would work?
I would have to check with David on
Well, I think legally, we could invite
one person.
or a couple or something into an executive session, yeah.
And they could give us their, and then they would, again, just part of the information, they could leave, and then we could talk, and then come out and say, we need to keep looking, or this is the person kind of.
Well, I think
That's
we
one
want
option.
to be,
The other option is that if there is a board member available to sit in and listen to those interviews, that's another way where you could be part of that conversation where they talk about strengths and weaknesses, and then bring that back to the board, if that's.
My preference on that would be have us removed from that, have them, and then they could select a spokesperson or persons to then come and tell us what they think. I don't know what you were going to say, Amy.
well, I think we should be clear also on what the expectation is from that group. Because I think this is different than when we hire the full, when we are hiring the permanent person, it's different. I feel like the interview process will be more robust, scoring system maybe differently. I mean, this is an expedited process to get someone into the position to, I've already expressed my interest in having someone be consultatory, but also someone to sort of help us sort of keep moving through the year successfully. So with that expeditious thought process in mind, I guess the question is, what do we want out of the stakeholder panel? And my idea or thought was that this would be advisory, and I would be interested in hearing about impressions, but I don't want people to feel like they are somehow, that it's a vote.
Yeah.
Correct.
Is that what you guys are?
We did that when we had the focus groups back, when we hired Dr. Happens. We were really clear this was not a vote. We just want to
Okay.
get their feedback, but you're absolutely right.
Okay.
To give us your impressions, your thoughts, and then share that with us, and then that's how we did that before, and that seemed to work.
Okay.
But I like that. I think having them come in the morning, there's no downside to that I can see. Do you guys think?
Well, they're just going to see candidates with a different eye than we are, which is appropriate. Everyone comes to meetings and decisions like this with their own backgrounds and their own sense, and our job is to really have the largest scope. Our job, teachers are going to come with a teacher sort of identity. Other leadership will come with a leadership identity, and our job is to take the broader look at what's the right thing for the community and for the district as a whole without trying to advocate for specific groups. I feel like our job is to make the best decision for kids and the district as a whole, and those stakeholders are going to add their specific lens, and I think I like the idea of at least having that a little bit.
So if we're in agreement to go with that, so do we pick those folks now, or do we, how are we going to do that?
First of all, I think you got to figure out, we probably ought to come up with a list, maybe we shoot to you, of potential people, and then you have to figure out their availability. This is a week away. I mean, this is 9 days away, and
On some planning and, yeah.
You're going to just meet the multiple sectors so that we have a little representation that's teachers,
we have-
administrators, business.
Just like we did when we did it before. Do we still have those lists of people?
Oh, I'm sure.
Probably around somewhere.
Yeah. What seemed like in that process, there were 5 or 6 different panels. And we need one panel here that represents our key stakeholders. And so hopefully that can be between 10 and 12 people. It unfortunately won't include everybody, but we hope that everybody will feel represented.
So would your, John, suggesting if we fired off to a note or called you and say, here's 2 or 3 people that I'm thinking, Amy thinks of a couple, then then you could maybe look back at those interviews or focus groups before and
You
get
bet.
some folks. What do you, talk Angela, Angela would be great. That's what she does in the community, and she may know people's availability more than we would.
Heather?
Heather, Angela, yeah, would be a good go-to. What do you think, John?
Yeah.
Amy, what do you think?
Okay.
Once again, I think,
Simple.
you know, with,
Yeah.
you know, with teachers and District 51 employees, it may be easier to figure out a calendar. When you get leaders and business people out there, it may be a lot tougher, so you may need a little larger pool.
Okay. Okay.
And it wouldn't be necessary that in terms of commitment of time, we're doing it Thursday because we're working around that. Well, that's okay. But I mean, no, they could do it next Wednesday or Friday, right? Or they would want to do it before we all get together.
Depends on candidate
Yeah,
availability.
Yeah.
that's
It
true.
wouldn't be easy on our candidates,
That's true.
especially for the one that's out of town. So
There you go.
if we can do it Thursday morning, I think that
Okay.
would be the best time.
All right. Just brainstorming.
Right.
That's great.
Okay, so I think I have enough direction from here to go forward.
Okay.
And then if you want to get me some names later tonight or tomorrow, we'll get started.
And you might call those lists too. I mean, I'll bet Crystal has them or somebody has
Oh, sure.
those community lists.
Yep.
Yeah, Paul reeled off a bunch of those groups, and you have them, and you may just have from that group some ideas and say, here's some folks I think would be good too, but we could throw some names your way.
So on Thursday, after we have these conversations, will we have available to us any other external information that you're able to gather as far as when do you make calls to sort of do background? Does that not happen till after selection, or can we have that available to us? Are there other, you know, searches to assess for any other problems that may be out there that aren't necessarily obviously in a CV? When does that happen?
That's a good question. My experience has been not until a finalist has been named, because, and I know that may fly in the face of your time crunch here, because I know we want to be able to make a quick decision and move forward. So I would throw the question back
But
to you. about-
Amy brings up a good point, because if we say that person A is our finalist, and then it
They
takes.
have a felony. Well, I mean, that's
Well,
an
no,
exaggeration,
but you're right. Someone can you do that work, or somebody do that work prior to there, so we may know so that way we know when we're interviewing, everybody's good to go. We don't have to worry about it.
Can't you do basic background?
We can
check?
do a basic background, but I want to make sure that we're on the same page when we say basic background. So what, criminal background check, licensure check, references, what's in that?
I would suggest, just in Amy's point, because as much as you can do prior would be good, because if we wait till afterwards, what does that usually take, a week or so or how long?
It can take a couple of days.
Yeah, I would say to do it before. That's my thought.
I mean, I think we're looking for big issues that are going to really mess us up if we choose a person who has some background thing that all of a sudden comes to light. We've gone to 3 finalists, so that's not a lot of choice. And we're on this, again, this timeline. So if someone has something in the closet that's sort of difficult and we pick that person, we're back to starting all over again. So if we, you know, I don't know what basic is versus an expanded where you're checking all the references, but I think criminal record, place of prior employment, if there's a way to check that there weren't massive issues or problems that would weigh or impact our decision. I mean, I'm not an HR person, but I'm thinking those would be the kinds of things that would be helpful for us to know about.
Okay.
And I assume that that's
Expand.
it's okay from an HR point of view to do. I know technically you pick your candidate in sort of in the world of hiring, you pick your candidate and then you do your reference checks and all that. So this is a little bit different. Is that considered okay?
It's a little backwards, I agree, but I think we can get it done. We would certainly call the candidates first to say, look, we're going to check your background. We need some references. We need your employment history, and have them fill out maybe some questions that would normally be on an application, which weren't a part of this process. So we can definitely do that due diligence up front. And I'll get with David and see if he has some other ideas as well.
Great.
That'd be great. I think that makes everything go a lot faster.
We did find with one particular candidate that basically hit a home run on the paper credentials, the resume, hit a home run on the interviews. Come to find out through the newspaper over from where they were at that things were not good, and right at the last minute, we dropped them out. And they were one of the top candidates. So is there a way to access newspaper information, stuff?
Sure is.
Google it, okay.
So that's that expanded check. So
'Cause that was at last minute, and that kind of blew us all away when that happened.
Well, your department has a lot of work to do, and I really want to acknowledge how hard they've worked for the last 365 or more. They did a superintendent search for us, and we had 48 applicants, and then they did the reorg and short-term posting and all that. Please convey to everybody that works with you and for you that it's appreciated. It's just kind of one more thing on top of a whole year of very hard work. So,
Well, thank you very much.
And I would even add, if and forgive me, I don't know what the other board members think about this, but if you need additional resources for this, this is a very important decision. And if you need additional resources, maybe get with Scott if you need to hire some temporary folks to do some calls, whatever you need. I think we should support that, because you're right. You have a limited staff already doing district stuff every day, and this is in addition to. So any way that I think we can support, we should.
I appreciate that, and we're happy to do this, so.
I know you are, but they had a killer schedule for so long in the last year, and sort of the unsung heroes, and their communication's been great to the administration and to the board, and they've always hit their marks, and so can't talk enough about that.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Do we have a plan?
Were we going to talk about salary structure tonight?
I don't think so. I think maybe when Tom gets back, I'll discuss that with him. I would imagine that he would be the negotiator in this arrangement. And so if I can do that with Tom when he gets back.
I assume, so it's a little weird, because we're talking, by the time all is said and done, we're talking about like an 8-month, we're talking about a 7 to 8 month stint.
Yeah.
So is it forgive my ignorance, but do you pay people like a set fee for 7 to 8 months? Is that how it usually works, that you offer is it like a contractual fee for that amount of time?
You could do it either way. You could do it through an interim contract that's just a temporary contract. You could do a memorandum of understanding. And so there are a number of different ways that you could go about this.
Is it usual for them to become an employee of the school district, or is it usual to do a contract, like an outside special services contract?
I've seen it done both ways, where they do become an employee, and I've seen it where it really is just an interim and it's a temporary position.
Is there one way that's better than the other? Do you have an opinion, or does it like become just a board preference?
I think it becomes a board and a candidate preference. Sometimes the candidate may push for, no, I want a contract, and here are the things that I want in the contract. And so that would just happen through that negotiation phase.
Is there a way that we can weigh the pros and cons? I mean, I would imagine there's some pros and cons of a special services contract versus having them be an employee. And again, I'm not an HR person, and we might, as a group, like to know, as we're making those negotiations, what are the the disadvantages and advantages of both of those? I don't want to make mountains out of molehills, and maybe
Yeah.
this is really your maybe this is your thing, but.
Well, it's definitely something that Vi and I have discussed along with Melanie in terms of what's our budget. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that can throw a budget out of whack is providing health insurance. Mm-hmm. And so that would be a negotiable part of someone's contract if they did or did not want health insurance. And so there are some things that can come into play depending on the candidate.
Okay.
So I appreciate the fact that Tom's probably going to negotiate this and you're going to talk to Tom. At some point, I'd like to understand what a salary range is too, so I might call you. We all participated with thoughts in the last negotiation, and I just, maybe it's Tom's job to communicate with us after you do it,
Okay,
with him, I don't know.
I'm happy to, yeah.
You guys talked about the questions already. I mean, those were all great questions. I mean, how you narrow it down to 10, but it sounds like we want to do themes or buckets, and you're going to put that together and have candidates make a presentation, is that correct?
Whether or not we call it a presentation, but just be prepared to talk about the following topics. Sometimes when you say the word presentation, people think PowerPoint and they think,
Yeah.
you know, a grand, where really, I think what you're going here for more is just a conversation about what their experience and knowledge is in those areas.
Yeah. I think the less that we say, other than follow-up questions, it'd be, less scripted we are, the better
Okay.
it would be.
I like the idea a lot.
You know, I've found personally, you could have them talk about how to fix a transmission. You know, not that I know anything about that, but, you know, just listening to people, a lot comes out about them and what we're looking for. I think we have ideas in the community. We need great leadership and someone to help build trust and sometimes those are just intuitive things. There is no map. It's just people bring it to the table. So that'd be great.
Okay,
Do you think we have a plan?
I think we have a
Shoot.
plan.
And I guess lastly, and I invite you to call any of us along the way in the next week. Send us a text, give us a call, whatever you want to do.
I certainly will.
Okay, good.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you,
We're
Nikki.
going to take a little break.
So do we need to adjourn this meeting?
I don't think a work session.
Work session's over.
Well, thank you. I'm like, yeah, not quite, but what is that? I know I'm going to kill myself over that. Do you want to have a date?
Yes, yes. Well, I'm a lot more flexible.
Well, no, I was really happy you wanted to do that, because I sort of, I would love to, I mean, I've spent a little bit of time talking to John before I started, right? And a little bit with Greg. But there are, you know, there are things that I don't totally understand about the culture of what I should be doing, how much, and having different conversations with you guys about, well, how do you feel about the micromanagement versus not, the bigger issues, how much time we should be spending? I'm a little freaked out by time right now, like a lot.
I'm more, after, you know, I generated that little list of, I just want to make sure, and we don't all have to. How do we do this? See where everybody is, because I speculate when I think what you think, or Paul thinks, but you know, I've sat with Paul, I really never sat with you, we just sat down and just, what do you think
Chat
about?
about life, yeah.
Yeah, about this kind of stuff, so never is good for you, because I know I have a lot more flexibility.
I'm like, about to
You
throw
gotta
this
meet my
out the
wife, because I
window.
burned it.
Shouldn't.
Well, I should. You kidding me?
This is like not good. So my phone is going in and out, in and out. It just started doing this. My life is on
Do
here.
this. You tell me, hey Doug, this is the best time for me, I'll make it work, because like I said, I have a lot more flexibility than.
How are you doing?
So after you get your thing working, say, Doug,
Yeah, I'll send
9
you some.
o'clock at 8 o'clock.
I'll send you some options because yeah,
Not
I'm
4
not.
o'clock in the morning now.
This is not gonna work. This is not good.
And I want to talk to you about that wave hike you did.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
You just did this Mount Bierstadt the other day.
Oh yeah.
Which we liked it, and we were talking about going down and doing that wave, and I told Peggy that you did that.
A little problem with the door down here.
Yeah,
so
I noticed.
So it's, I think the hinge is bent. or
Well, we'll just pull these tables back a little bit, and then,
That's probably good so that I don't like fall and impale.
so you can get way up there now.
My phone. This is just not good.
What's that?
My phone's gonna blow up. Oh, it's turning on now. You know. I know. I think it keeps going on. Now I know this whole life is.
Okay, is that gonna work for you?
Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
okay, so, okay, cool. You don't have to worry about rolling on it. She can, don't worry about putting your feet on it, because we're gonna get it fixed anyway.
Okay.
And then, I don't know if you can, I mean, you're welcome to come to this side, or whatever works best.
All right.
Well, we can pull those. I'm gonna go that way with the tables too. We'll get it moved over. Go ahead and get you something to eat. It's not gonna be centered tonight.
So, John, this is good, we're not doing anything after the official meeting.
Doug, we're going to go ahead and get started here in just a second.
Are they not paying attention to you, Paul?
Oh, I think we're getting ready to start.
Oh, wait, oh, I have two of these.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and start our business meeting tonight, and we'd like everybody to stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we start on the agenda items, I'd like to just let everybody know that if you have comments, you wish to come up and have something to say, we have green slips that look like this on the back table. You can fill those out and then present it to the board secretary over here as soon as possible prior to the start of the meeting. If not, you can do that in between presentations here. And then on item G down on the agenda is when we'll call you up for whatever you'd like to talk about. We do ask, I'll give you some boundaries on that when we get to that item on the agenda. So we can go ahead and do a roll call.
Dr. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Levinson?
Here?
Mr. Parrish is excused, absent. Mr. Pitton?
Here?
Mr. Williams?
Here.
Okay, to begin with tonight, I'd like a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second. Roll call.
Yes.
Mr. Levinson?
Yes.
Mr. Pitton?
Yes?
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Next, we'd like to have a motion to approve the minutes and summary approval from C1, the August 1st special meeting, the August 7th board work session. C3 is the August 21st board business meeting. We had a special meeting on the 30th and the minutes from August 31st, the board special meeting. Do we have a motion to approve those?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from item C on the agenda.
Second?
Second.
Dr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Levinson?
Yes.
Mr. Pitton?
Yes?
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Okay, next we have a couple of recognitions. This is always one of the best parts of our meetings. We get to recognize some of the great things that are happening out in the district. And the first one, I guess I'm doing, so do we have a microphone for me here? So the board would like to invite Ms. Heidi Ragsdale and Mr. Mike Gregorich to the front of the room, please. Over the last several years, Ms. Ragsdale and Mr. Gregorich have demonstrated their commitment to STEM and geographic education in their work with students in District 51. In summer of 2017, they were selected out of 104 middle school educators across the country to become the National Geographic GeoInquiry Ambassadors. The GeoInquiry process, which empowers middle school educators and students to use geographic thinking and geospatial tools to solve real-world problems, included a national training for Ms. Ragsdale and Mr. Gregorich in Washington, D.C. After this training, Ms. Ragsdale and Mr. Gregorich returned to District 51 and used their new tools within the West Middle School STEM program the Colorado Science Conferences, District In-Services, and the D51 Summer Institute, and at a week-long Colorado conference for the rural STEM teachers. Their work led West Middle School to tackle plastic use within their building. Students, after learning about plastic use within the community, were able to raise funds for a water bottle filling station and worked with Alpine Bank and Mesa County Landfill, Grand Junction Parks and Rec, and District 51 to raise awareness about plastic use. Last summer, Ms. Ragsdale and Mr. Gregorich became certified National Geographic educators by completing a 4-month training to bring STEM strategies to the classroom. Ms. Ragsdale also was selected as a certified educator mentor for teachers around the world. The Board of Education is proud to recognize these 2 teachers for their commitment to their students and for the remarkable work they're doing, and it's being recognized on the national level. Thank you very much.
Mary Beth. So the board would like to invite Ms. Mary Beth Prodromides. Did I pronounce that right? Prodromides. I know you as Mary Beth, so I might just use that instead of saying your last name. We are really excited this evening to congratulate Mary Beth for her 4th CrossFit Championship, World CrossFit Championship. She's a PE teacher at Bookcliff Middle School, has won the CrossFit Championships for her age group for the 4th time. After starting the high-intensity fitness program in 2010, she has dedicated herself to her training and emerged as a champion during the Reebok CrossFit Games in 2011, 14, 16, and 18, making her the only woman to hold 4 titles. Only 2 men have accomplished this feat in the men's division. CrossFit focuses on functional strength, which includes techniques used in everyday living. For example, getting out of bed uses the same muscles as a squat. Getting back up after falling down uses the same muscles as a push-up. Training and strengthening those muscles can help in everyday life. The road to 4 championships hasn't been easy. Mary Beth has had to overcome injuries, surgeries, and family illnesses. Even with that, she has finished in the top 10 for her age group every year that she has competed. I'm going to add a little because I don't know if you guys know this, but this is an incredible thing. CrossFit is unbelievably hard. And I'm pretty impressed and have been. I've been watching Mary Beth for a while now, so I'm really pleased to stand up here and give you the certificate. Another thing that most people don't know is that she's a really good coach. She helps everyone who shows up at the gym. My husband is a CrossFit guy, you know Billy. And she's helped him with his stuff, and she's helped kids and adolescents and inspired them to do CrossFit also. So I'm a big fan. Congratulations very much.
Nice work.
That was nice. Okay, next on our agenda is board reports and communications and requests. Does anybody have anything? Well, open up. I had a chance to go to Fruita Monument, and Todd back there took me around, showed me not just the construction projects that are there and the future plans, but I got a chance to go in some of the classrooms, and that was really amazing. It always is when you get to go to a different school and just see the dynamics of it. So thank you for that. Anything else? Okay, our legislative report tonight, Amy Atwood's here from Denver. That's coming up, though, not yet. It's not yet. Okay, thank you. So our next item on the agenda, that's part of the superintendent's report. Sorry. So we'll have the audience comments coming up next. Please keep your comments as brief as possible. 3 to 5 minutes is allowed. If more than one person wishes to speak on the same topic, the speaker is limited to providing only new information. Try not to repeat. So at this time, Jeff Hale, if you'd like to come up.
You can sit down if you want, whatever you're comfortable doing.
It's good if you hold the microphone, because I think they record this or people watch it on television. There you go.
It'll take it a second.
I'm yelling, please don't, because it's not my intention. All right, today I'm here and I'm been thinking about this for a while. I just found out that there's distances on the school bus routes for students, meaning if you are middle school or high school, you have to live within 3 miles of the school to ride the bus, or you have to pay to ride. If you're in elementary school, you got to be 2 miles. Personally, I think that those distances are unrealistic for what's going on in this community. I am a single dad. I work from 6 in the morning, or from 7 in the morning till 5:30 at night. I have a son that's in middle school. We live, according to you guys, 2.7 miles away from Orchard Mesa Middle School. If you look at it a little differently, we live 3.1 miles away from the bus stop. So I got a letter from my son, from the bus driver, that stated that we had to pay to ride. And I had 7 days to pay that money, or my son couldn't ride the bus no more. Mind you, when I signed him up for this school, and I've lived at this house this is his 2nd year going there, and we did not pay last year. Didn't have to pay, never brought to our attention that this was a pay-to-ride situation. When I signed him up for school, they go, oh yes, your bus stops down here. Okay, well, that's where my son catches the bus. So that's what happens. Well, all of a sudden I get this letter. I'm not the only one that got this letter. A lot of people got this letter in this community about pay to ride. So I have some questions about this pay to ride thing. First of all, how come I didn't get this pay to ride letter last year? And my son rode the bus all year long. And plus, 1 month into the school year. Number 2, how come my son goes to school for a month, then I get this letter that says you got to pay to ride? Don't agree with that. So I go over to the bus stop, go over to the bus depot. Of course, I paid it because I can't have my son not get to school. And mind you, it's $10 a month, but that adds $90. If you look at it, that adds $90 a year to me sending my son to school. Now, luckily, I only have 1 child. What do you do? I know people that have 2 children. They're now paying $20 a month, and they live right around the corner from me. And actually, she's here, and she can talk to you about it. I just don't understand how come we have our kids walking these distances to school. These distances are really unrealistic. I'm all week long I've been thinking about this coming here. I'm not a speaker of any kind. I'm not very good at this. I want to be the smart aleck and have these rude comments and all that, but I'm not going to do that. But I am going to challenge each and every one of you. In January and February, when it's cold out and there's snow on the ground, I want you to park your car 2.9 miles away from where you work and walk back and forth to it every day. Then you're going to know how it is. My son to walk to school would have to come down 29 Road, cross 29 Road there in D.5, come down to Uniweep, and walk all the way down Uniweep to Orchard Mesa Middle School. That's unrealistic, folks. We have to fix this, we have to change these. I paid the money, it is what it is. Unfortunately, I do not qualify for any help. I make about that much more than the bottom for any free lunch, for any help or whatever. So I work my butt off to make sure that I can supply for my son. And then all of a sudden I get this note. The other thing this letter stated was that if that bus fills up with kids that live more than 3 miles away, no matter whether I'm paying or not, they can kick my son off the bus and I have to figure out how to get him to school. If you guys have not seen this letter, I suggest you get a copy of it. That's why I'm here today. And I don't know what to do about it. I don't know what can be done about it. We pay you guys to make these rules. You made these rules, if I remember right, they told me 6 years ago. I don't know what budgets were back then. I don't really understand what they are right now. But somehow, some way, this has to be fixed. Because if you look at it, my son's 13, and don't get me wrong, I don't have a problem with my son walking to school. By all means, when it's nice out, heck, he can ride his bike to school, do him good. But I do not think it's fair to ask any kids in Mesa County to walk to school in January and February because that's the only way they can get there. And that's basically what's happening. So I don't know what the answer is, but it needs to be addressed. That's what I have to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hale. We do have a committee that's actually looking at that right now. And we'll try to get them to contact you on it. So next we have Tricia Vogan.
Matter which one? The right?
And you could sit too if you want,
Oh, okay. Well,
whatever you want to
I
do.
don't really have a whole lot more to say, except for I have an older son, and he rode the bus too. And so I've been 5 years riding the bus for free. I mean, because that's what I thought was in our boundaries. And all of a sudden we just get a list, and now 2 of my kids are pretty much kicked off unless I pay. So I have to pay $20 a month, which is, I do it because that's just what I have to do. But I just didn't think that was pretty fair, that just happened that quick. And then the other thing is so that's for middle school. And then we look at elementary, and they're 2 miles from the school that they have to walk. I could not imagine a first grader walking that far. I mean, I don't even like to walk that far, but that's all I really had to add towards what he had to say. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nancy Robles.
So mine is basically the same issue. I did a little bit more research on the way you guys find the mileage because I got on the website as well. And through satellite, MapQuest, and Google's map, it's all over 3 miles from where I live. And when I got onto the Mesa County website, it says that I'm 2.8 miles. So I was just trying to figure out what system it is that you guys use compared to the satellite and the Google Maps and the MapQuest. And I brought printouts of those as well, just because I try to do my research. But my son, again, we've been riding the bus for over 4 years, so with my high schooler and now my middle schooler. And that's all I had to add.
What school?
It's Orchard Mesa Middle School as well, correct.
So I have a question. Are the buses full
I'm sorry.
in your area? Are the buses full, or is there room on the buses? First of all, are your kids in middle school?
Yes, so on my letter, it said that there's 9 kids waiting to get on the bus. So my son I have not had a chance to get him on there because there's 9 other kids ahead of him. But he's been riding all year, and then we get this letter that if he doesn't fill out the application and pay the money by a certain date, that he would not be able to get back on. But there's already 9 kids waiting, so we're still waiting. So with him, I mean, I can drop him off because I also work, but I cannot drive him home from school is one of my challenges right now.
So I think what John was asking is the, and maybe I missed it, is the bus full as far as you know, or have you seen the bus?
I do not know
You
if
don't
it's full, but I know that there's a waiting list already, so.
We observe buses driving around town, and some of them look rather empty, and some of them look really full, so I just didn't know if,
Yeah, I don't believe that it's full, but I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I just know that there's 9 other kids waiting on the list to be able to ride the bus to school.
Well, thank you very much, and
Do you want to
like I said, we will,
have the research, Phil, would you like?
I can answer some of those questions now. The reason the kids can get on the bus at the beginning of the year, before they get the letter, is we don't know the kids who are on the bus. They just get to the stop and they get on it. We require the kids to fill out forms, permission slips, and once those are processed through at STA, then we identify which kids are eligible because they're 3 miles or more and which kids are under 3 miles. And then they send out the letters if kids are getting on the bus who are under 3 miles. Because there's a waiting list, it tells me that STA believes that the bus is full for that portion of the route. And that's why they're getting the letters too. It could be that last year they didn't check the route because the bus wasn't full. So there was no pressing need to identify kids who were riding who were ineligible.
Not that we're here to fix problems tonight, but are there ways to, in some cases, do stopgap if the bus is full and there's other needs and people are willing to pay the out-of-area fee? Is there a way that we can, I know there's a way we can add routes, but, you know, to come up with costs for that, or is
Well, we know a route costs $35,000 a year.
to add one more bus?
Yep. The bus fees would pay approximately 10% of that if the bus was full.
so remind me, we asked the people at STA to go back and think out of the box a little bit to kind of, and that's been very recently, correct?
2 weeks ago.
And I mean, 2 weeks and not very much time. Do we have a update date coming up? Do you have any idea, or?
Well, we don't have anything scheduled. Basically, it's a funding problem. We have, all of our buses are running. We don't have spare buses sitting around, except for a few spares in case something breaks down.
But you know, I think the point, if I can interrupt, forgive me, your last name again, I'm sorry. Hale? You know, Mr. Hale brings up a great point that if we can come to some resolution before the weather breaks, I mean, we get into December and January and February, and I know what you're kind of rolling your eyes at me here about.
Well, if there was space on the bus, I could let them on the bus.
No, I know that, but you brought up some issues about money, and those are things we need to look at, because certainly if there's a fix and there's a way to do it, then we need to try to at least give our best effort to do that, certainly before the weather turns bad. Yeah.
Well, it's 35, last time we looked at it, it was $1 million to shrink the bus walking distance by a mile. What did I say?
Okay, but
$1
I
million.
think to John's point, if the busing folks have some different ideas, maybe we can ask them to move faster on that. So there may be some other ideas that don't cost, I don't know. I mean, that's where he was going to do some research and check with other routes in their system. There may be a way to do it without the cost, or maybe we get a cost saving. That's what he was going to report to us on.
Okay. I think, I got a note here that this was put with the calendar committee.
Yeah,
Okay.
When is the next
I'll talk
calendar?
to Shane again tomorrow.
yeah.
But I'm short of adding a lot of bus routes. I don't really see how to solve the problem.
We don't either, and that's why I think the last meeting we had was, as John said, you know, to think outside the box. There may be another, maybe there isn't. I don't know. That's what he was charged with doing, to try to find some ways to look at this differently than just say it's $35,000 for a new bus, and it may be. But that's where I think the hope would be, at least personally, have the hope that he might have some ways to accommodate more kids and get them to school more safely.
That's what I was thinking. That's probably thinking outside the box, is to take us off who were in route to make us pay, you know, because when I Googled my address, I'm exactly 3.0 miles away from the school. And I know, like, they did a drive-by and they went from one house all the way to Uniweep. That's not where the kids are getting dropped off. You know, they are going, it's almost still another quarter mile from Uniweep into Orchard Mesa Middle. You walk down that road. So, I mean,
Well,
So it's-
the procedure is we use a program called VeriSign. You can actually access it through the website and put in your address, and it'll tell you the same information that we get. We occasionally have situations where Google and VeriSign will be slightly different. Usually it's not 0.3 of a mile. If you want, we'll drive from your front door to the school and measure it in a car and see what we get.
so
And actually, if I do it and it comes out under the 3 miles, then I ask some from the bus company to drive it as well and see what they get.
okay.
So if your house really is to 3.1 or 3.0, we can drive it and check for you.
And that's from right where my house is all the way to where you drop off the kid? That's how you guys route that?
By the 1/10 of a mile, so, you know, to be honest, I round a little bit. Like if I can get it to 2.95, it
I
turns
just feel
into
like 3 miles is 3 miles, whether you look at it in any other way, you know? If my kid has to walk 3 miles, he should be able to ride the bus.
So we started on this problem a couple weeks ago. I think Doug brought it to us. It's up in front on our view. I'm just going to tell you, it won't be ignored. I'm not sure you're going to like a solution we come up with, but we'll, you know, so like everything else, it's a matter of money, and we've asked the bus company, and I think they're really quite good at what they do, to think a little bit more out of the box and see if we can get more accommodation out of this thing without spending $1 million. So I think that's where we are. And it's not like we're not listening tonight. I just don't think we got a solution for you tonight.
Well, and just like saying how the buses were full, I think you can put 3 kids per seat. And I know my kid said that there's only 2 kids per seat.
I think middle school and high school, we've been told they figure 2
now?
at the middle school and high school level. Elementary, they figure 3. And you know, piggyback on what John said is, and I'm not going after Phil or the transportation. I mean, they work within guidelines that the board and the district have given them. And so that's why we charged the transportation people a couple weeks ago to think outside the box. Are there ways to make this happen? Because certainly you bring, Mr. Hale, a great point, is kids do walk, and this is across the valley. This isn't specific to Orchard Mesa. This is I live in Fruita, and I get calls from people in Fruita who have long walks too. So there's hopefully a way to get this thing fixed, but it brings up, it's money.
And I'll echo Doug, because it isn't, we've tasked Phil and the bus company and all that to do it within the budget parameters that we've set. And when these things were set, the current budget's been set from huge budget cuts back in 2011. So we think as a board, it's probably time to be taking a better look at it, because you're not the first folks that have come up and said, this is an issue. So Phil's taking some heat over there, and it's not.
Well, I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke up your rear. I'm not happy with his attitude, because I've talked to him before. But I have a question. So these rules have been set into place for 6 years, correct? Is that what it is? That's what you told me on the phone.
Say that again, please.
You told me these boundaries have been for 6 years.
8 or 10.
Okay. So what did we do before that?
It was a mile closer for both. It was the
So back then, when the recession hit, we changed them to save money.
Correct.
Correct. Okay, I get that. Obviously, you guys can look at me and probably tell that I work for a state agency. I get it. I get budgets. I deal with it every day at work on my side of things. I don't know what your answer is, what your fix is. I don't know what the deal is, but money is different now than it was 10, 11 years ago, which is what you just said. You know, you guys are going from my door to the school and saying it's 2.7 miles. You're not counting, which I measured, the 3/10 of a mile he goes the other direction to get on the bus.
So once again, I don't want to be rude at all. We really hear what you're saying.
Okay,
You
and I
guys
understand
You
that.
guys have spoken eloquently tonight. It's now up to the board to figure out if we're willing to spend the money rather than someplace else, or if there's a solution that's out of the box. So give us just a little time.
No, I know you can't do anything right now, and I don't even expect anything to happen this year. I really don't. It's just, I'm not going to attack anybody. Anyways, I've said enough. I
It's your
appreciate
kid,
your
and you don't
time.
want your kid walking 3 miles.
Well, it's not just my kid.
No, it's a lot of kids, but
Talking,
I
I
see
have a
what you're
neighbor
saying.
that has a little girl she's
Yeah.
8.
You know, children, but it doesn't, we don't need to have a child get run over to make a point so that we get this
Exactly.
fixed. So we're looking at it, and I believe me, this is a serious issue.
Well, it is.
And also the growth of the valley.
Well,
It's not going to be long. We're going to be at 30,000. We're going to have more buses. There's no way of getting around it.
and I concern about
That walk distance is going to be
if
reduced.
this fills up that my kid can lose the seat. How does that work? And I said it before. I already said it. I appreciate your time. I hope you really do keep looking into it, and I look forward to hearing from you guys about it. So, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
We have one more. Addressing the board from the audience, Michael Christensen.
Hi,
Aye.
it's this one. So, I have an American government project, and I'm supposed to try and address an issue. And the issue that I'm trying to do is sports funding, because I see some sports very well funded, such as football, basketball, baseball. And then you have sports like lacrosse that aren't funded at all. And it's lucky that we have generous parents who own businesses that can fund our sport. And Grand Valley, they're a lacrosse program that also helps support it. But we have to do a bunch of fundraisers to play the sport, while other sports get money through the school and District 51 to get new stuff such as like pads, helmets. Like football team, my freshman year they got brand new jerseys. The next year they got new helmets, and for lacrosse everybody has to supply their own gear. And gear isn't cheap. It's $300+. So, yeah.
Nicely done.
We'll have somebody give you some answers to that also.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Can I ask you a question? So what do you need for your project from us?
That's it. Just
A response, sort of an answer to how
just
that
like-
works?
Just like, I guess one thing is like, who is in charge of that? Is
Okay.
it through CHASA or is it through District 51?
It's through District 51. And in our understanding, at least my understanding is last year in our budget, we did increase the district athletic budget because of the issues you brought up. And it's not enough, I know, but it's a lot more than what our athletic departments got before. And I believe it goes through our athletic director, Paul Kane's office, and that's disseminated out through the different high schools. And then the high school athletic director may have some discretion on how that money is allocated within the building. I don't know if you've talked to your building principal or your building athletic director. They might have some answers for you too, but I know as a board, we did increase that funding for this year. But it's quite a bit less than it used to be back 10 years ago, I know that.
So I love that you're asking the question, and I might recommend that in addition to who gets to make those decisions, that you ask some follow-up questions, like how do they get prioritized? And what do you do if you have a difference in opinion? Who do you go to? How do you appeal that? So for your project, you might take that the next step, and not only who makes the decision, but how does that get prioritized? And if you want to change something, what are the steps that you need to do as a person in your sport or in your school to go about changing things, or at least appealing where the funding is going?
Okay, thank you.
You know, Bridget, I know, don't we usually get someone to get back to folks who ask questions? Could Paul Kane maybe give you a, okay, and we can ask Paul Kane to get with you, and you could sit down with him and ask him those questions, and he probably has better answers than I do.
Again, Doug, you may want to talk to his athletic director there at the building.
Yeah,
Or both,
or both.
and see if
But we
the
can-
answers match.
Yeah, there you
Keep
go.
asking questions.
That's great. What year are you?
I'm a senior this year.
Senior. Good job.
Thank you.
Thanks for.
Thank you. So all of these will get, all four of you guys that came up, we'll make sure we get somebody to contact you that can answer your questions. The next thing we're going to do is the superintendent's report, so I'll turn that over to Mr. Cooper.
Great, thank you, Paul. Before we jump into the reports here, I just want to mention I was able to visit all 46 schools in the last month and a half, and have been super impressed with the school cultures we have here. It was great to see all that in action. Let's start with Ms. Amy Atwood. Thank you for your patience, and she's here with a legislative update.
Good evening. Amy Atwood, District 51 contract lobbyist. Thank you for having me. It's been a fantastic day here in Grand Junction. I've had a lot of productive meetings with board members and with staff, and I just really appreciate your time, everyone's time today. It has been a very, very busy interim this year. The session ended around May 10th, and it was off to the races, and literally off to the races. There is an unprecedented number of legislative seats that are up for re-election this year. So during this interim time, I used that time to go meet with candidates, talk about District 51, what the priorities have been in the past, the innovative things that are going on here, and making connections with those candidates, both sides of the aisle, and a lot of the legislative seats across the state. I've met with the candidates here in Grand Junction, the two House districts, 55 and 54, and then I also met with Senator Scott after his primary. So it's been a good time to build relationships and put District 51 on the map for folks that don't live out here. We've also had interim committees, big time interim committees with School Finance Interim Committee. If you remember, they met last year, and it was a very unproductive year. And really, it was unproductive this year until we had yesterday's meeting. The interim committee let go of the consultant that they had been using for the previous year, started with a new consultant who put together a model that the legislators can use where they can change the formulas with the factors, with the categoricals, and they can see exactly how it impacts every district across the state and what that dollar number would be, whether it's an addition or a subtraction to the entire budget, the entire education budget. So it was a big step forward yesterday. They've been asking for that model for a year, and a different consulting firm had been working on it in the background, and they were poised and ready to go yesterday. So
just on that, just so everybody out there understands, in the school finance formula, if one of those categories needs an adjustment, it impacts, they have to go back through and reconfigure the entire formula. And what you're saying now is they can go in and just fix a piece of it.
Right, with
at a
this
time.
model.
Okay.
So with this model, they could go in and change, say, special education or cost of living factor, and see how that impacts. Because like you said, the formula, if you change one thing in the formula, it's cascading to everything else because everything is intertwined. So making those slight adjustments, what does that look like? And the legislators asked for that so they could see and really play around with that, the totality of how everything is interdependent. And you move one lever over here, and what does that do over here? So I think that we may see now some light at the end of the tunnel where the interim committee can introduce 5 bills, just 5, that come out of the interim committee. Committee members still have their own bills. But it seemed that we may have a path forward, not with a whole school finance rewrite. That is a big political bill. But you may see where they start to try to take a bite at the apple, because politically changing a few things within the formula that both sides can come to agreement on, that might be the way to have incremental change with the formula instead of trying to do a wholesale rewrite. We do know that from the superintendent's formula last year, it didn't pass. Not last year, it really was this year, but in the 2018 session, the superintendents, the leaders of putting together that formula have said that they are going to bring that back. They said that as recently as 4 weeks ago, that they plan to bring that back. They may tweak a couple things, very small items. So right now, they've publicly stated that they expect that formula to come back. Thursday of this week, we have the revenue forecast. Legislative Council and the State Budget and Planning Office both do independent revenue forecasts, and then compare them together. That's 10 a.m. on Thursday. So indications are, we've all seen it and heard it, that the economy is humming along, that there's still growth within the economy. But we'll see what they say, if they expect the state budget to be flat, increased, when they start to put together the 1920 budget. This is really the precursor to then we have another forecast in January, and then we'll have another one in March. But it just really tells us how is the state doing and what kind of money do we expect to come in at this point for next year. It'll be 6 months before we put together a budget, or the state puts together a budget. We do know of just some specific bills that are starting to take shape, because so many legislators are running their own races. Even if they're not in a competitive seat, they're focusing on helping their friends get elected. So usually by this time we see more legislation, even in an election year, that's taken shape. But we just haven't this year because it's a pretty contested year. But we do know if the Senate flips from Republican to Democratic, that the automatic waivers that charters are afforded right now, that they can just go for automatic waivers. It's different than what a regular district school would go for when it comes to waivers, that will be opened up. There will be a bill to open up and really look at, are all of those waivers, should they be automatic waivers for charter schools? Another one, it's being called the lunch shaming bill. So it's not a politically charged bill at all. But if there are families that are not able or willing to pay their lunch accounts, and then districts send those families to collections. So there's kind of unintended consequences of sending a family to collections, but the district is owed that money. There are also reasons, too, that families probably qualify for free and reduced lunch but haven't filled the paperwork out, whether it's that they're undocumented. Military often does not fill that out. Language can be a barrier, even though they are always in different languages. So we will see the bill. It's Representative Michelson Janae out of Aurora will be running that bill. And it sounds like the slice will just be the lunch accounts, can't be sent to collections. But she's going around presenting on that bill. Another bill that we'll see has to do with greater flexibility with evaluations within something to do with the performance framework, the accountability system, but it really is that nebulous right now. It just depends on how the Senate comes out of the election. If it flips to Democratic, it will be a different look at the accountability system. Then there may not be much changes if it stays Republican. So staying on top of that, the sponsors of that legislation are holding it pretty tight through November to see which direction they go in. I wanted to give an update on Amendment 73. And so that's the tax increase specifically for education. That campaign is working across the state. And they reached out to me to reach out to you to definitely say, if you need someone to come in and give a presentation, another presentation to the board now that they're definitely on the ballot, they are happy to send someone from the community. You can let me know and I can make sure that happens and they can give a presentation now that they're on the ballot. The Blue Book language just came out today and was solidified today, made public today, and I will get that to you. That Blue Book language has all of everything that is going to be on the ballot. It's the pros and cons to each of those, every single measure, and there will be 13 measures on the ballot this year. So it'll be a crowded ballot, but the good news is voters don't fatigue out on ballot measures. Either they are ballot measure type of voters, and when they start, they finish, or they just don't vote in ballot measures and they go to people. And that's what our polling shows us and historical data shows us, that they really don't fatigue out. So if there's something on the ballot that is of particular interest to you, don't worry if it's at the end of the ballot. It'll most likely get voted. And that's it for my presentation.
That's a short one.
It is. Any questions?
That was great.
You know, you'd probably have a lot more, except that you were generous with your time today. I met with each one of us, and it was great to catch up, and I suspect that new board members probably had questions about lots of stuff that maybe we become used to. So I appreciate you coming over. It's a lot better to have you here than it is electronic.
Skyping in.
Yeah. So.
And I appreciate that last time. My son had broken his leg as well as we had just come out of the session. And so the timing was just so difficult. So I really, really appreciate that on Skyping. And I think also during the legislative session, being able to give updates that way when we're throughout the session, that I think that would probably also be beneficial for the board, so everyone hears the same message at the same time as well as the public.
Okay. I have a question for, maybe Phil, you can answer. What do we do for people who have the outstanding lunch bills in our district? Do we do collections or do we do something different? What is the District 51?
That's a tough one. We feed the kids regardless. In the past, some people who don't live in this county would take a meal away from a kid. We don't do that. We try very hard to continue to feed the kids. If they're every year we write off about $100,000 worth of lunch bills that are unpaid.
So we're not sending people to collections?
We may in some circumstances.
Like case by case? Is it based on building leadership or?
Circumstances.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Drive carefully.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Next up, we have a college and career readiness presentation with Sherry Taylor and Andrea Bolton.
Thanks for having us. We're going to talk with you a little bit tonight about career and college readiness. We're going to focus tonight mostly on career technical education and work-based learning. So we're going to have Andrea begin with career technical education.
Thanks. Okay, so we're going to start off with the Colorado Talent Pipeline, because I think that's a great place to just begin and look at a little bit of data. So you've probably seen this before. This is just a different graphic, but I think it's important to look at how we're losing kids along the way. So out of 100 ninth grade students, only 77 actually graduate high school on time. These are all Colorado statistics. Of that 77, or really of the initial 100, 44 move on to post-secondary education, and only 35 actually return for their second year. So sometimes we have maybe a misfit in that situation. Then moving on, 23 complete a post-secondary credential, and I think that's in about 150% of on-time graduation, so 5 or 6 years. Of those, only 18 of these graduates actually enter the workforce. So perhaps they got a degree in something that didn't get them a job right off the bat. So you can see there's tons of leaks in our Colorado Talent Pipeline, and what we believe is that career and technical education is one way that we can patch some of those leaks and help our kids find their career path. This next slide is just some statistics. So we have CTE on the left and Colorado on the right. So students who complete a CTE program actually have a higher graduation rate than students who do not participate. And then students who enroll in post-secondary education, military, or the workforce, it's about 98% of career and technical education students. 58% complete a post-secondary credential of some kind, and then 61% of career and technical education students actually contribute to the workforce compared to that 18% that you saw on the earlier slide. So a lot of times CTE refers to itself as one of the biggest interventions for our students. This is just a really great video about CTE in Colorado, and it's brief, but we'd like to show it to you.
3 of our district people are in this. This is one of our students from Fruita Monument High School. Andrea's in this. It's a statewide video, and Trisha Brown.
What I did before advanced manufacturing was basically just high school. You know, there wasn't a lot going on. It was just math, English. It was cool. You know, I enjoyed it, but I just want to focus on what it is I want to do in the future.
The CTE program is a lot more of, well, we want you to build something. You can come up with what it is, or we want you to help solve this problem. And so it gives students, and certainly me in my experience, a little bit more flexibility to kind of choose our own path and solve things our own way.
I don't enjoy school very much, but if it would help me in my career, then I definitely want to do that.
I had no idea what I wanted to be before I took those classes, and then I had so many ideas.
You do what is specific to what you want to learn.
The great thing about CTEs is it covers all sorts of things.
Basically, if you think of any career, there's a pathway for it in career and technical education.
CTE is so important for all students to be able to have the opportunity to explore, because there are so many careers out there. They can really develop anything that they want to these days.
It's a lot easier now to go and get involved with some things and to try some different options than it ever has been. So why not?
You can go to college and beyond. You can get your bachelor's, you can get your master's, you can get your PhD, but you can also enter the workforce at the same time. So if you need to save money, you can work. You need more experience, you're not quite sure what you want to do, you go to a technical college and you find out what you want to do, and then you go from there. It's not a limit, it's a beginning.
I think if I didn't do CTEs, I wouldn't have found that courage to be able to reflect back on myself and say, this isn't right for me. I know I can be more successful elsewhere.
They're really involved because they want to see their future come to fruition with
the path that they choose.
I love being in the driver's seat. It's all a matter of this is what I want to do, I'm doing it. With the things that I'm studying right now, it's making me feel very confident in my abilities. It's making me feel very prepared for what I'm going to be doing for the next however many years of my long life, hopefully.
Students don't always love going to school every day, but they love it when it's related to their future.
The soft skills that I developed through participating in CTE have helped make me feel confident in whatever challenge lies ahead of me, because I know I have the skill set behind me to pave my way forward.
Okay. So, we just wanted to briefly cover a few of our programs, so I'll just highlight a couple at each building. One of the buildings we're very proud of is the Career Center. It's our designated career and technical school. There's really, I believe, 8 or 9 in the state of Colorado, so we're pretty lucky to have one out on the western slope. You can see they offer a variety of pathways for our learners, and Cam and Jamie, the admin out there, would be happy to give anybody a tour. They love to celebrate what their students are doing. At Central, their STEM program has really become a magnet program for our district, but you can see they have other CTE courses as well that all work together. At Fruta, they are really known for their ag program, but they also have an up-and-coming tech ed program that's very STEM focused. They have a new media production program and just kind of a host of other programs that are out there. Grand Junction High School, the High School of Business is their newest program, and that's really an AP style program where students can earn college credit. You can see they have a wide variety as well, from business to journalism and broadcasting, catering, a little bit of everything. At Palisade High School, again, you have a nice collection of different programs. Construction technology is big out there. And then the picture you see is of our business students at an FBLA conference. FBLA. R5 has an ACE program, which is alternative cooperative education, and it's really focused on that transition into the post-secondary world, whether that be right into the workforce or onto college. They do a deep dive into career exploration. So a couple of our ideas for CTE program expansion. One of the things we're really excited about, and we tried to get off the ground last year, but our teacher unfortunately moved, so we're looking for another teacher. But we want to start a teacher cadet program and really start to grow our own teachers. It's a lot of hands-on experience. It's very, they get out and they do internships and clinicals and whatnot, but it's a great way to grow and retain our own talent here in the Valley. Advanced manufacturing is also a huge push. There's over 120,000 jobs in Colorado right now, and 7 out of 10 manufacturers are needing additional skilled workers. It's a huge need in our community. One of the other areas that I think is important that we look at is healthcare. While we do have a couple of healthcare options here, I think we could expand upon that. Really, it's the top projected area of job openings. And then we have an aging population, not only in Grand Junction, but all across Colorado. We have a couple of really large health providers in town that are always looking for work. So I think that that is an area that we could grow.
Okay, so in addition to CTE for our students, one of the most exciting things we have is an opportunity to do work-based learning. So work-based learning is basically just an opportunity in the workforce to learn the skills and what really goes on in the area of the job that they want to do. We need to provide opportunities for our students to have these experiences before they leave our system, because once they leave us, it shouldn't be a hit and a miss. They shouldn't just get lucky and fall into something. We need to help guide them into what they want to do. What are you doing? I don't know if you had the thing. Okay, so basically there's a lot of opportunities in work-based learning. And I'm going to kind of walk you through these. So the first opportunity might be a student in government class at Fruta Monument might have the opportunity to go over to their the judge and visit with the judge, and they get, the whole class gets to go behind the scenes, and they get to see everything that goes on over there. So then Andrea's like, oh, you know what, that was actually pretty cool. I kind of like that. So she comes back and thinks, I might want to work in a courthouse in some capacity in the future. So she gets on our virtual job shadow, which is a computerized programs. The students can log in and do as many virtual job shadow experiences as they want. So she might go and look at what a recorder does at the courthouse, and what does the judge do, and what does the magistrate do, and what does the legal clerk do, and see all those, a day in the life of, virtually. So then she decides, you know what, I'm really actually getting more interested in this. So she says, you know what, teacher, can I have the opportunity to go over to the courthouse and spend 4 or 5, 6 hours with them and job shadow, an on-site job shadow. So her teacher calls, we get it set up. She spends the whole day over there at the courthouse. She gets to go behind the scenes. She gets to see it all. So now she's super excited. She's really thinking, this is what I really think I want to do. So then the pinnacle of work-based learning is internships and apprenticeships. Really, probably your biggest difference is our internship programs are unpaid, and our apprenticeship programs are through CareerWise, and they currently are a 3-year commitment from the business and the students, and they are paid. So first, our internship. It involves 60 hours of an internship, so the student might do it during the school year, spring, fall, or summer. Summer is one that we really, it's going to be a big push for us, is next summer. We're going to have a lot of students involved in internships. They're not in school, they're not, if they're in sports, if they have a job, they can still work around that. So internships would include is a 60-hour program. They do get credit in the school year. So you go over and you would have the opportunity to work at the courthouse and really live the life for 60 hours, a minimum, that you might want to be doing in the future. From there, then, the ideal is that we would be able to turn that into an apprenticeship program, where that is, and you've had many presentations on our CareerWise apprenticeship program, but that's where the students do get paid, and they really get a 3-year in-depth opportunity to learn the field and the business and the job that they're maybe thinking that they want to do, to make sure that, yes, this is the career that I want. It's a 3-year program. Students are paid during that time, and they take college courses, and it's a wonderful opportunity for our students. So that are the opportunities that we provide for our students in a work-based learning environment. Currently, internships in District 51 in the 2016-2017 school year, 11 students participated in internship experiences across the district. In 2017 and 2018, 7 students participated. That is not anywhere near enough. It has really just been a hit and a miss, and to be honest with you, it's just been, if a student really kind of initiated it with their teacher, then the teacher set it up for them, and we want to turn that around. We want to, as the adults, do the work for the students and provide these opportunities. This school year alone, we will have minimum of 35 students participating in internship programs. They will begin starting in the spring, and we will have opportunities for students in the spring as well as in the summer for internships. Then in the 1920 school year, we would like to have 75 students participate in internships, and by the 2021 school year, we would like 120 students to have internship opportunities. Our ideal is that they are driven by what the student is interested in, and we go out and we find partnerships in our community that will give our students opportunities to do that. Apprenticeships, currently in the 16-17 school year, we had 14 students placed in apprenticeship programs, and in the 17-18 school year, we had 9 students placed in apprenticeship programs. Our hope, again, is to grow that program. In the 2018-2019 school year, we would like to see 20 of our students given apprenticeship opportunities. In the 2019-2020 school year, we'd like to see 35 of our students given apprenticeship opportunities, and by 2020-2021 school year, we'd like to have 55 of our students given apprenticeship opportunities. So those are some of the goals of our future for our students.
My understanding on CareerWise, the apprenticeship was, a whole lot of that has to do with didn't we have a whole bunch more kids that wanted to do apprenticeships, like 40?
We did. We had many more students that applied than we had businesses provide opportunities for our students. And so we are working, as a matter of fact, Andrea and I have had numerous meetings throughout the last 2 weeks with the CareerWise folks, and are really looking to build the number of businesses for the opportunities for our students.
Because it's a sizable investment, so, you know.
It is. It's a large commitment from the business, and we greatly appreciate when they do make that commitment for our students. These are some of the businesses currently in our area that have provided apprenticeship opportunities for our students, and we greatly appreciate their involvement and their commitment to our kids and our community. These are some of our other community partners. Mesa County Workforce Center is who we've partnered with for our virtual job shadow. They've been great partners with us. Grand Junction Chamber of Commerce, local businesses, WCCC, Colorado Mesa University, and CareerWise are some of the partners that we currently partner with. In addition, this is some of the other things that our department is working with. Technical scholars, so our tech scholars through Western Colorado Community College, our students have the opportunity to go to WCCC and take additional CTE courses. We have ICAP that we work on with our students, which is basically a plan that they create for the careers that they want. YAY, which is Young Entrepreneurs Academy. We have high school scholars, which are concurrent enrollment classes that are offered at our high school. Then we have early scholars, which is concurrent enrollment offerings where the students actually go to the college campus. We have Ascent, which is students who have completed their 4 years of high school and they go on to college, and the Ascent programs gives them quite a bit of tuition assistance. We also offer CTE middle school programming that are exploratory in nature. We have computer science curriculum that we are building to make a K-12 alignment. And we have AP and IB programs for our students that will help prepare them for career and college readiness.
So I've got a question, a couple things.
Good timing, questions.
Oh, okay. So you had a slide earlier. I saw Joey Kwalzak's daughter who was doing a machining, I don't know, it's where she was learning to be a machinist.
Yes, she's one of our apprentices.
WCCC. And they also had at Coors Tech, when I toured over there with Andrea, a young man that was also becoming a machinist, and he was going to actually go to WCCC and pick up the skills and not really pursue a college education, where the other two were going to be electrical and mechanical engineers. And so all that list that you've got up here just fascinates me, of all the different possibilities. I see Westar up there as a brand new one this year in the advanced manufacturing. But I saw your numbers of all the kids that were in the internships and the apprenticeships, and you were talking about concurrent. How many students do we have currently or in that concurrent program? I know that there's a number that go to CMU and some go to WCCC, and they actually earn the college credits. So what are we looking at there?
We do. We have, so currently we have, throughout the year, we had 831 classes taken basically at WCCC. So some of our students took multiple classes at WCCC. I do not have the concurrent enrollment in terms of our early scholars and our high school scholars, but we could certainly get you the numbers that do concurrent enrollment through early scholars. But our tech scholars are currently 831.
So I know we can have tours. I'd really like to get to GPD Global. That's a robotics firm, and see what our kids are doing there. That's pretty fascinating. But can we get a tour of WCCC and actually see our kids in the machine shop and the culinary arts and things like that also?
Absolutely. If you have not had an opportunity to either go out and see any of our apprentices in the workforce, or to see whether it's our career center or whether it's WCCC, I would highly encourage you to do that, and you're welcome to call our office and we can help set that up. It's wonderful opportunities for our students, and it's for all students.
Yeah. So the CareerWise, does the district have to pay money for those kids to do those internships, or is that all coming from the sponsors that interview these kids and pick them up in their?
So our district has currently 2 apprentices, one in the finance department and one in the IT department. So our district does pay for everything for those students. So we pay their salary and we pay their college tuition, the classes that they are taking. But the business, so if the student works at the DoubleTree, then the DoubleTree is who pays their college tuition and who pays their wages. So it is a large financial commitment from our businesses.
Now about the concurrencies, I know that's a great deal for kids, the district.
So our concurrent enrollment students, which is our tech scholars, our early scholars, and our high school scholars, the school district does pay for those currently. So we pay for those students.
Are we limited, are we limiting the amount of kids that go to concurrent enrollment because of budget numbers that we've set? Or is there some float out there? I mean, I don't know if we budget $500,000 and we spend it all in tuition, so there's no more room, or?
Those are some things that we could look into. You know, one thing is we've always tried to get kids in the direction that they want to do and help support them in any way, but I can certainly find out budget-wise what we're currently spending and what we've allotted and see if we're within our range and where all of that falls out. I can get that information for you.
You don't think we're turning kids away because of budget?
We are not currently turning kids away at WCCC and our concurrent enrollment students. Who we are turning away currently are our Career Center kids. Some students just are not quite ready to go to WCCC, and they are a lot more comfortable going to Career Center. We do have a wait list for our Career Center students for us. For all of the programs, there's a wait list for. But at WCCC, I know that we've been able to get all of the students who are interested and ready and wanting to go. There's been slots for them.
I think we need to look at the finances and the budget and see what else we can do to get the best bang for the buck for our kids, because what I saw last year when I went into these businesses, that the employers love the kids and want them permanently out once they move into the workforce. So I'd like to see more of that, but definitely I know it's within budget parameters that we try to provide as much as we can for the kids. So,
and we can certainly look at that, and that's something that I know Andrea and I are wanting to continue to make sure that we're getting all opportunities for our students, so we can look into that and let you know.
Yeah, and I'd like to have you guys come back and maybe bring some of these kids and get some more video of actually them in the workforce. That's just fascinating.
Yeah, they're great kids, and we greatly appreciate the businesses.
I had a question.
Yes.
So I was curious how the concept integrates with kids across buildings and across the district, because this is a small number when you look at the total. And, you know, during campaigning last year, I heard a lot of people sort of hinting at every kid should have sort of this opportunity to have a one-on-one counseling session within an entrance into an individualized program of career readiness or whatever they're going to do. And so I wondered about how you guys integrate with school counselors and identify kids who can do that, and how can you leverage that so that more kids can be part of it without necessarily being an apprentice? This is a big and sort of a broad question, but you probably, am I clear? You know, how do you take the model and apply it across a larger number of kids?
And that's really been a huge goal for us. One, we do now currently this year, we have a coordinator for counselors. We're very fortunate that she comes from a very strong career and college background. So her push with the counselors has really been a K-12 aligned program. So ideally what we would love is all of our elementary students to have a career awareness, just have the opportunity to become aware how many different careers are out there. Middle school, we're really wanting to grow into the career exploration, and then in high school, the career opportunities and experiences. In terms of all students, Partly that's with our partnership with the Workforce Center, the virtual job shadowing. All of our sophomores this year will have logins and will have the opportunity to get on as many times as they want to do the virtual job shadowing. We've been working with all of our high schools to set up job shadowing experiences for our students. Partly why we want to do it in the summer is transportation is an issue for some students, especially if they don't have their own car. They can't go from school to a place of employment, and so that's why we really want to increase the amount of opportunities we offer in the summertime for our students, so that anybody can participate. We don't want there to be barriers for any of our students.
And there are other parts or other people in the district who do career readiness besides you guys, is my understanding. And is there coordinated effort with regards to that? Like, obviously the counselors, you probably are with them, and there are teachers who have special interests, and, you know, the STEM program sort of has their thing going, and how do their projects and their leadership and coordination align with what you're trying to do?
So there are actually a lot of people that are working on this for students. Luke is our new community partnership and relationships coordinator. He is in our offices also, so we meet with him on a regular basis. We've actually been meeting with communications on a regular basis. And Angela Christensen is one that we partner with, that we've worked with pretty regularly. In addition to them, though, the counselors are a big part of this because they're the ones who see the students every single day. And so we're working very closely with Shauna, and Andrea has been attending the counselors' meetings so that voice is just kind of always there for our students, that we need to be preparing them from the beginning for what they want to do in their life. They should not be going, and it used to be that you picked what college you want to go to, and then you're like a year or two later, okay, I'm going to pick a major, and then after I finish my major, then I guess I'll get a job in that area. And now it really needs to be, okay, this is the career I want. So what do I need to do? Do I need to go to a technical college? Do I need to go to a four-year university? Am I going to have to get my doctorate? What is it that I need to do to be able to have this as my career? Then I make that decision as to what community college I'm going to, or the workforce, or a university. Then I go there, and then from there, then I'm given the opportunities and the doors are open. But so we're trying to reverse that line of thinking, that you pick your career first, not what college, because my mom went to it, or it's, you know, the alma mater, or that kind of thing. So we're really trying to turn that around.
So we have 4 college and career counselors, one in each of the high schools. Do you work directly with them also?
We do.
Is there a way to get an update on their effectiveness, and are they really communicating?
Absolutely, yes. We can certainly ask them to come and present also. We worked with them weekly. We met with them this summer to really look at the data that they had from last year, as well as to set goals for the future. So, yeah, they would be more than happy to come and present and discuss it. That's a great idea. Thank you.
What can we as a board do to sort of support this idea of individualized attention to students and their futures, and helping them sort of navigate this? Because as a 15-year-old, I would imagine it's a little difficult to sort of know what to do.
Right. So I think one of the things, honestly, is the fact that you guys are all supporting the D51 learning model, I think is huge, because the D51 learning model is this for students. It's personalized learning for them. And so that in itself will help our students. The other thing is, honestly, we've talked about, if your neighbors work somewhere, see who wants to have our kids in, who's willing to help work with our kids and support them, whether it's for a job shadow, whether it's an internship, or even all the way up to a CareerWise apprenticeship. It's who can help our students, because the majority of our students stay here in our community, and so to continue building our community, we're going to need to support our students. And so any connections that you guys have, you're welcome to either go talk with your neighbors and your friends directly, or you're welcome to give us their information and we'll contact them. But that's probably our biggest barrier, as Mr. Williams brought up, is it's sometimes a little bit hard to get businesses to open their doors, understandably, for a 15-year-old or a 16-year-old. But we really believe in preparing our students, too. This is how you'll act. This is how you'll dress. This is, know your audience, that kind of thing. And we have amazing kids. And anybody who's had the opportunity to work with our students, will tell you all of these people are continuing to, they want another apprentice kind of a thing because they've had great experiences with our students. It's just opening that door to have that first experience. Thank you
both for presenting tonight. Something I heard that I'm very excited about is the teacher cadet program, because we have a major teacher shortage in the state of Colorado, so, and that affects every district. So I'm excited about learning more about the teacher cadet program coming up. Also, I heard tonight from both of you to check on the finances and make sure that we're getting the most for out of our budget to support these programs.
We just don't know if it's,
Yeah.
if it's an impediment to making
We
the
will,
program
we
bigger.
will get back with you on that, for sure. Thank you guys very much. Next up, we have the bond update discussion with the Blythe Group. You guys would like to come on up?
Scott, we're going to ask NV5 to do a quick report on Orchard Mason Middle School ahead of the Blythe Group, if that's all right. You want me to? We have Colleen Kanata and John Ussery with NV5. There are our project owners reps for Orchard Mason Middle School. They're planning to come about once a month and give the board an update of where we're at progress-wise. They weren't on the agenda tonight, but this will be a pretty brief presentation. We have a lot of exciting stuff going on.
Okay, so what you see up on the board there is what one of our normal monthly updates would be. So this is the second time that we've been here, and thank you for having us here briefly to give you an update. This will be our normal format, but if there are things on there that you would like to see, we can certainly add them. We have flexibility to do so. So on the left-hand side, we run through what we've completed recently in the last month since we've been here, what's in progress right now, and what we have upcoming. And then on the right-hand side, there's information about where we are in the budget and the schedule. So as far as what we've completed recently, we obviously had the groundbreaking ceremony, and the bigger part has been procurement of bid package number 2. FCI has had that out bidding on the streets. We received some pricing, and we've released them on bid package 2. And the projected cost came in a little bit higher than we were tracking originally, but overall we'll be able to absorb that into owner contingency for the overall budget.
What's bid package 2? What components there?
Yeah, so we broke in 3 different bid packages just in order to lock in trades and numbers as soon as we can, as soon as design documents are ready. Our first bid package was general conditions for FCI and our excavator star work. Bid package number 2 included mechanical, electrical, plumbing, our steel package, masonry package, concrete. So a pretty significant chunk of the work. We will have one more bid package, bid pack number 3, which we're looking to execute October 25th.
We have submitted foundation permit. It's my understanding we're just waiting on a letter from the fire authority, and we can go and pick that up. We have received the clearance for the foundation from the city planning, and we've started our over-X. We did not run into too many issues with the soil. We were a little nervous about that, so we were holding back more owner contingency to deal with any potential soils issues. So luckily, as part of the building, we didn't encounter anything too major. And we had our large construction kickoff meeting with all the team members. Design, we've completed 30% construction documents, as well as having bid package 1 and bid package 2 issued, and we've received a 30% construction document estimate. And we also have had a meeting with the city to coordinate the permitting. As far as what we're working on right now, we are working with the our abatement consultant, which is Grand River, and they are providing some documents so we can go out and procure those abatement contractors for the existing school. That's another risk, of course. We don't know exactly what we're going to find until we get into it. So we're also holding some appropriate contingencies on the abatement there, and we have to abate before we can demo that building. As far as other things are just standard stuff, utility coordination, with all the different parties to make sure we're up and running when the new school is ready. Building foundations going in, and we're doing our underground mechanical, electrical, and plumbing rough-in. That's MEP. And we will try not to put initials down for everything on the following report so you can read it more easily. And as far as design, Blythe is working really hard on issuing that final package of construction documents 100%. Their deadline is tomorrow, which is why Peter is not here with us tonight, because I am sure he is working right now. And we also are working through with Blythe Group the FF&E, which is the furniture design for the building. That's still in progress. It'll be a while till we finalize that, as well as the final AV design, but that's pretty normal that it would follow the construction document set. And upcoming, we will get our final building permit. We will procure the bid package 3, as John already mentioned what that is. It's a lot of the interior work. And we will be starting to go slightly vertical in the next month with the foundation. And we'll be done with design. And in the upper right-hand side, when you see these reports in yellow, that's our overall, we're tracking the general schedule with design, new building construction, and then the demo. And that, we just can't see that on this chart down below because the demo's so far away. But as we move forward, we'll start to see that a little bit more clearly. And there's a chart there that shows our soft costs, our construction costs, and the demolition costs that add up to that $40 million that was in the bond language. So far to date, we've committed over half of those dollars. So as we commit the dollars, our risk also goes down because we're finalizing pricing. And we've spent $1.3 million to date. And there are a few photos. One last thing to note is that FCI has been working diligently to bring as many local firms to the table for this project. And John has a little bit of an update on that and who we have so far.
Yeah, so out of all the trades procured in bid packages 1 and 2, only one of the firms was outside the Western Slope. That was our elevator company, and that's pretty typical. We have to reach out to a larger company where we're at. And then of those companies on the Western Slope, all but one of those were here in Grand Junction.
What questions do you have?
Yeah, I've got a request, and if there's a way, and I know there's always deadlines, you've got more important things to do, but if we could get that in a packet, you know, hours before, a day before, something like that, it may bring questions to mind.
That is our intention, yes.
Yeah, preferably more than hours. I don't, you know, the building language is new to me, and so if it, for instance, comes out with the pack and I have a question, I can call Phil or, you know, call someone, which I'm often looking at this and saying, I don't understand it, and I'm calling someone at the school district to say, please walk me through this. That would be really helpful because I think like John is getting at, that helps us understand what questions to ask. And having a little bit of time to process that would be really helpful.
We just have a better conversation with you if we could look at it in advance.
We had a communication drop somewhere because we thought this was going to be in your packet, but I'll find out where that forwarding process fell short and see to it doesn't happen again.
We're not looking back and complaining. We're just
no.
Yeah, we will.
Thank you very much.
That is our plan. Yeah.
When would you like it, Bridget, for the package?
It has to be the Thursday prior to the meeting.
And we can get you Bridget's email address and we can send it straight to her. Correct. Yeah.
Perfect.
Sounds great. Any other questions about the project?
Can I make a comment, please?
Bid pack 2 was the big packet because it had the steel stuff, big items that we were concerned about. So when those came out and we were really close to budget, we were really happy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is communications, and I believe that oh, I'm sorry.
You're gender imbalanced, you guys, just want to tell you.
Uh-oh.
Well, good evening, Board. John Potter with the Blythe Group once again. As we promised when we were here a couple weeks ago, we are back now tonight with more information about our proposed project at Fruita Monument, and we will give you an update as well as some additional information here. Eric will get the slideshow started here, and we'll get going. I think you can put it right here. Again.
Had a long day, Todd?
No. Well, this is just the wrong.
We can use the PDF.
Use this key.
Oh. We need to. Let me do this. On. And maybe this here. Okay. Oh, we got full screen up there. Okay. Very good. All right, I'll quit messing with it. All right, here we go. I don't know. We'll have to pass these from side to side, I guess.
Just an update where we are. This past summer, we did half the re-roofing of that school. Almost the entire school was scheduled for re-roof. We went in and fixed the underground drainage and lighting for parking lot lights and repaired the main cracks in the parking lot. We got into the design for the new entry, as we reported, the need to sprinkle this building, and a contract was awarded to sprinkle the entire school, and half of that installation was done. And we've come up with some concept drawings for the new entrance into the parking lot and the concept for entry and infill at the school. So we're through the first summer of what we're hoping is 2 summers worth of work at that school.
All right, and to talk a little bit about the money, as you will recall, in the bond currently, you have approved $2 million as the total budget for the work to design and construct a new entry there. And as we have gone through that process now, we've discovered it makes sense to, as we shared with you last time, also expand the parking lot to the east. This past summer, we spent about $0.8 million on the fire sprinklers, lights in that new east parking lot, and a new water main to serve those fire sprinklers. Thus, we have a balance of about $1.2 million left of that pot of money. Secondly, you've approved already a $3.2 million budget for the repairs at the school there. And as Eric just mentioned, we've spent about $1.2 million on replacing roofs on the school over the summer, repairing the parking lot cracks and various repairs to concrete. So we have about $2 million left from that bucket of money. And of course, altogether, that's about a $5.2 million budget approved at this point in time. With that, I'll pass it on to Eric with Chamberlain Architects, and as well as Todd McClaskey to tell you a little bit about the exciting stuff we like to do next.
So you got 3.2 million left.
That's correct.
Okay, I'll speak on behalf of the school and hopefully the community. But I just want to say we're tremendously super excited about all the renovations and additions to the school. Starting with the parking lot reconfiguration. If you look at the cul-de-sac, that'll be a redesign that'll go allow for better parent pickup and drop off into the school. It'll also lead to our new main entrance that we're really excited about. But in doing that, we're going to be losing about 40 parking spaces. In conjunction with the parking lot overlay, we'll be creating. The new overlay has designed for parking spaces that actually cars fit in. We have some spaces right now that are very compact and not as safe as they could be, which brings to light the importance of the additional parking lot on the east side of the gym. That addition will, so we're going to lose about, like I said, 40 spaces with the construction and realignment of the parking spaces. That will add up about 152 parking spaces. Currently, we have 705 spaces with a waiting list of 83 students. Now, our sophomores are, that'll grow to close to 200 students by the end of the school year. We don't have the side streets. We're very rural out there, so we don't basically have Wildcat Avenue where kids can park. This would accommodate for a lot more of our students. It would also provide convenience and improve safety by allowing parents and community members to pull into that east lot, which is closer to the gym. The gym is on the south side of the campus, and the majority of our parking is on the north side of the campus. So we often have folks just wandering around looking for the gymnasium. So
I got a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Why doesn't the new east parking lot connect to the expanded south and give you another exit point for?
It's a good point.
To reduce the flow going out.
The highway department has an issue with additional cars entering and exiting the Highway 6 and 50. And I have some anxiety over our kids entering and exiting off Highway 6 and 50. I know it's a lot of traffic coming off on Wildcat Avenue, but the traffic is not as fast. And I think it's a little safer for our kids. And then, like I said, the highway department, I don't know if any of these guys can add, they're opposed to any additional traffic entering and exiting beyond the current lot that's there.
I think too, another safety concern would be the temptation for drivers, rather than going on up to the light at 18 Road there, would take a shortcut through for the monument to get to Wildcat Avenue there. If that connection were available.
All right.
So you'd have a bunch of non-school related traffic potentially going through the school grounds.
So, is this on? Here, this one is. You can use that one. So Todd talked a little bit about the safety that would be added through some of the parking improvements, also security, and those are two important points that we're trying to prove on for the addition and remodel project also. This is the infill of the courtyard and the new entry. And then we also think that these improvements will improve the longevity of the school. I know there's some question about the long-term plan for Fruita, but I think a lot of the things we're doing will be useful no matter what the long-term use of the school will be. So this is the current and demolition plan. You can see this is where we're adding the new entry and the existing courtyard that will get infilled. Some of the counseling and other attendant or admin functions are over in this area. We have principals over here. Further down the south corridor, there's athletics. And so another part of the project will be to consolidate those functions over in this area. So you have one sort of entry point for the public functions with shared reception desks around that waiting area. The new entry will feature a security checkpoint. So there's a second set of doors that will be controlled by the attendance officers. And then on the overall plan, you can see one of the big things we're trying to do with this addition is create a sight line through the whole building and really widen that corridor and improve the flow and the connections between different sides of the building. You have these corridors that just end in the courtyard right now, and we'll create new connections to the building. So we have a couple exterior views. You can see the current entry is really sort of a cavern that you enter into this courtyard, and then it's kind of unclear where to go. So we want to create a better public face for the building, and starting from the outside, separate the pedestrians from the traffic for safety. And we've got some seat walls, places for people to wait, rather than just right out here in the parking lot that goes right up to the front door right now. More of an overhead view. You can see the rest of the courtyard infill, and some trying to get lots of natural light into that new commons area to preserve some of the feeling of outdoor space that a lot of people like with the courtyard now. But it'll be usable year-round. I think it'll be more functional once we're done with it. There's a view from that commons area, so there's some comfortable kind of lounge areas off to the side. We're expanding the cafeteria seating over on the other side, and then creating this sort of line of sight and generous corridor to really connect the building better than it is now. I'll let Tyler talk about the construction.
So as we reported about a month ago, we've already bid out the east parking lot scope. We did that in August to take advantage of market conditions. And after the summer work was done and wrapping up and contractors were looking for work for third and fourth quarter, we were able to bid these scopes out and see a decrease in the cost for those. We've got those lined up. We're ready to start as early as tomorrow with anticipation of having that east parking lot paved and completed before the end of the season. Then the intent would be to work with Chamberlain over the next few months and develop the rest of the design and budgets to complete the infill project. And in doing so, we feel that by doing this project in 2019, without stopping and starting over a couple more years, that there's a savings from inflation and an economy of scale for doing as much work as we can continuously and in a duration that makes sense for the project. You know, a lot of construction costs are based on time, and the longer it takes us to do it, or the more times we have to come in and out, the more it's going to cost to complete. As well as in doing so, we add more interruptions to the school itself and disrupt their function and everything that they're trying to achieve.
What was the cost of the parking lot mid-season versus after season?
It's about $300,000 more than what we're showing right now. And that was a change order cost versus competitively bidding it out as its own scope, as well as the amount of work that we were trying to do in 10 weeks versus put it out as a standalone project and by itself and do it under a reasonable time frame.
If we bid it out in March, what do you think it would cost?
It's going to go up 10-15% between inflation costs and then just again time, construction time.
And how much would we save if we accelerate this project and get it done in 2 years instead of 3?
It's going to be another 15% on the total project cost.
In dollars, roughly $1 million?
Million plus, $1.5 million.
So if I understand, I don't make sure I understand it. rather than doing it in 3 segments over summer vacations and stuff, you're gonna be under construction at Fruita Monument High School,
We would start with,
all of 19.
we would start in the spring of 19 and complete by the end of year 19 with the infill. The parking lot, the east parking lot, we would start as soon as tomorrow and be complete by November of this year.
Is the scope, you're gonna do the same kind of basic thing that we asked the voters to approve? I mean, I understand the design followed the money in this case, and so you're doing, you learn as you go kind of thing, but.
Right, basically the bond language is to construct new entry on the school, which is certainly what we're doing. Just that as we dove into that question, we started to ask, what does the entry really need to do? And it's become, well, the budget will, the $2 million will not build the entry that we're envisioning right now, I guess is kind of the short way to put it. But as Eric was saying, because it may be some time before the school can be replaced, we believe it probably is dollars well spent. It'll extend the useful life of the school several decades.
So we're gonna spend a little bit more money than what we kind of budgeted this,
For the entry, yes.
renovation.
For the entry, that is the proposal, yes.
In 2 parts. Let's go back 1 slide, please. Okay. Tonight, we're asking for the design fees of $220 and the east parking lot paving. That's $830,000 total. We intend to use the part of the $4 million we've saved already from phase 1 construction. If you go to the next slide.
So once again, I just want to be clear, that's in addition to specific bond approval money for Fruita Monument High School.
Yes.
That is in addition to the $5.2 million that is approved right now, yes.
So we've saved $4 million overall in all the projects you've managed for the first year, John.
Correct.
And you're suggesting that, and what the resolution tonight is, to spend some of that additional money on making Fruita Monument High School more functional and give it a longer life.
Correct. We're asking for $830,000 this evening.
So how did that get prioritized? I mean, what if I'm at Lincoln Orchard Mesa or, another site, and I've decided, or that school has decided there's a need? So who decides and how does it get prioritized that where the $4 million saved goes?
So we're expecting a long-range planning to bring recommendations to this board in the spring. Our challenge with Fruita Monument that kind of puts it in a unique situation is if we delay this parking lot construction primarily and the design work to do the infill, then we're going to push this project out another year. If long-range planning comes this spring to the board and this is a project that the board and the long-range planning decides is a worthy project. So the parking lot piece, we're gonna have to find a way, whether we do it with maintenance dollars or something, we had $800,000 set aside for repaving and overlaying that parking lot, and when we got our engineers in and started looking at traffic problems, it just didn't make sense to put that kind of investment and not improve the drainage and particularly the safety of that parking lot. So to do the cul-de-sac piece, I think, we really need to incorporate that into what our voters approved as the main entrance in the parking lot. It wasn't, the additional spaces weren't really budgeted. We didn't have a solid design for this till we sat down with an architect and the owners and school group out there. So we're kind of, we believe this is a worthy project for our district. Fruita, the needs are so strong out there that when long-range planning comes to you, they're going to recommend this if it doesn't make it to a priority for leftover funds or other funds. then we've probably spent the $220,000 for a design that may set till the next bond or something like that. At some point, I think we have to do, we have to make that school usable, secure, and more functional. We're getting away from just this one piece, 13 outside doors there at that school and bringing people into a single point of entry. So it's a huge security upgrade, and we just feel like it's going to be a worthy project when it comes back to you, and additional funding is looked at to do that actual construction. If we push this out a year at 15% inflation, like say when we come in to do that infill in 2020, it's probably $1 million more than what it would be if we're ready to go this spring. If we just want to be ready to pull the trigger on this and hit the ground running this summer with this work if the board does approve it at that point.
Well, I don't think anybody in the district knows our buildings and our needs and efficiency of money more than you do, Eric. And I am really taken by a need to extend the life of Fruita Monument High School rather than being faced with replacing a big part of it much sooner down the road. But also, to Amy's point, and I'm going to vote for you tonight, but to Amy's point, I really think we're going to have some excess money out of this bond issue, and we need to use the long-range planning implement to gather that data and figure out where that money is going to be spent. You've been around long enough to know there's so many needs out there that everybody's crying for.
Well, that's why I'm playing the devil's advocate a little bit, because the pressing need is always the project in front of you. And so for each project, there's the risk of the budget could increase based on things that you unearth. And I don't know anything about construction, but this is life, right? That you deal with the problem in front of you and you take care of that. And if you're not careful, it's easy to have that escalate unless there's some sort of oversight overall looking at where are all these increases going to be. And I like John, feel pretty sensitive to, I feel like as a board, our job is to understand what the community and taxpayers agreed to and make sure that we don't overstep that. And at the same time, I hear you loud and clear saying that this is the right thing to do. But again, at each step of the way, if there's another need and we've spent all our money and you find something equally difficult, and you've spent your wad already, we got a little bit of a problem. So I'm just bringing that up as sort of a devil's advocate. It would be nice. It would have been nice if we already had the strategic plan, so that as this came up, we would have the list of projects and where we thought we might be under or over budget on each of those. It's difficult as a layperson sitting here trying to think, all right, well, we're going to spend more money here, and what about the next project, and what about the next project, and where is that line, and is it a slippery slope? So,
the entire additional cost for the project that Eric explained earlier is $8.2 million. We're only asking for the $8.2 million for the whole front entrance and all of the phases as Eric described. Tonight, we're only asking for the $800,000 for the design fees and the parking lot. We fully expect that the Long-Range Planning Committee will vet the rest of the projects that are on and come back with the big money issue in January or February.
It sounds like the parking lot needs and the safety you did, it's a huge deal. And one of the things I hate about really the bond process and capital process is you never have any design. And so all of a sudden when you're doing the best educated guess you can about what something's going to cost in Palisade for a new gym, but guess what, until you design it. And so I think there probably some virtue in spending some money on the front end to design it and say, oh, this is really what it's going to cost, rather than any more guessing out there. You got the strangest configuration of buildings I've ever seen.
Yeah, I'd like to know who designed that original entryway to your school, but I got a question. You got to take into consideration that there's nothing there to expand the space in the school for more students in the way that they're building out in Fruita right now. Where are we going to put all the new students? And then the second thing, you need that extra parking space. You said you got a waiting list of 200 or something like that.
We will by the end of the year. We have
So that needs to be addressed. Yeah.
and 100 staff.
And then the other thing is do you still have copies of the Shannon Bingham's building conditions? And they were the in 3 tiers. Could you send that to the board members also to look at? Because that shows building conditions, most severe, next most severe, and then the ones that are in pretty good shape down at the bottom. Yeah, across the whole district. And you send that out?
The one you did a year ago?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important we honor the long-range planning process.
Yeah.
I think being challenged with refurbishing part of Fruita Monument and then putting the safety and security piece in.
Yeah.
The parking lot piece and even the fire sprinkling piece of this school. We couldn't do anything. We're dealing with 3 separate buildings, and we're talking about another addition. So the first thing that fire department, building department said, no, you're gonna have to sprinkle this building. So we've taken those on because they are clearly in the best interest of our students, and we can bring together a revised entry plan to this school without doing this total infill. The infill piece is above and beyond the new entry to Fruita Monument, but it really does add a lot to this school, even though there's not a lot of classroom space. The functionality, the sprinkling of that building will let us infill some of the courtyards and breezeways out there in the future and add a little more capacity, but this is really targeted at making the student population we have, the school more secure, this safer, and the function of that facility is going to be so much smoother to have a central artery through the buildings. It's so disjointed now that I really can't speak for the long-range planning, but if we weren't optimistic that they were going to be encouraging of this, we wouldn't be here tonight. We really, and that is their role. We're not trying to circumvent that. We just feel like there's a significant savings by keeping this process in motion while we wait for that report to come in. If we're back here in a year.
So just so that
I want to make sure I understand what's going on here. Okay. So basically what we're asking for is money up front on what we truly anticipate is going to be asked for down the road. And if we wait for the long-range planning recommendation to come, that's all well and good. But in the meantime, then we're losing the opportunity to get this construction done now at a savings. If we wait, we're going to end up spending more for something we fully anticipate is going to happen down the road. And to Amy's point, I get that because we've had discussions about the needs out of Palisade and Orchard Mesa, and we've talked that there are savings. I know we've realized some significant savings already. We have the BEST grant. We have the bond. What is it? Premiums. So which is all good news. But we haven't, as a board, sat down and discussed what are the needs, and we truly want to do that. And I know Amy's brought that up before, and I think it's wise and prudent. In this particular case, so it sounds like it would be wise and prudent we have to trust your judgment too. You guys are the experts, and we have to defer, I think, at least I feel I do sometimes. But it sounds like that's the plan, right? That we anticipate this. So we're gambling. That's what the long-range plan is going to say. Let's go with that. It's going to be a savings, and we get this thing done. Because I know you had mentioned we don't want to start and stop these projects. And as long as you can run school and not have things get interrupted any more than whatever, Am I right with that? Do I get it?
The parking lot piece is something, even if Long Range Planning came back and said, you know what, you should delay this 2 years, that piece is significant enough for the safety and function of that school that we feel like that's not a huge stretch from what we asked for.
Sure.
For redoing the main entrance. The driving force behind that additional parking is redoing that main entrance to the school and losing those 40 spaces. And I understand there's more than 40 going back, but that's really what got that set in motion.
Well, I know John always says, let's not go on the cheap and just do it right. Let's not do it on the cheap. Let's not do it on the cheap, let's do it right. Isn't that what they say out at Fruita?
Right.
Exactly.
Another reason for the additional parking lot is if we want to make a 3-year project, a 1-year project, and get our kids safe and give them an entry that they're to their school that they're proud of and a central corridor that they can take pride in, we've got to, the construction workers are going to need to stage in the parking lot. And so we're going to lose about a third of our parking when they move in April to start construction. And if we have the additional parking lot, we're not going to gain any spaces, but we would have adequate parking. So that's another reason why we want to get this east parking lot in. If we want to get this done,
I know there's been some
in
additional
December
costs. I was
of
in
next year.
Initial meetings where the sprinkle was addressed, because if it wasn't, you could still have gone ahead with this project, but it would have cost more because you have to have considerations for the building not being sprinkled. So there was a cost there that you had to incur, correct? That wasn't initially anticipated in the bond and mill. I mean, we never said that wasn't part of it, but that's a prudent move to ultimately make this project sustainable and, you know, and keep the building for long term. And we're making those investments now, it would seem.
And it made your building a lot safer.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And it seems, I know we had the discussion early on too, the original idea was on the entryway was phase 2 or phase 3 was to finish that, and we talked about, I remember there was that start and stopping again, and not, let's just get her done and go from there, so anyway.
And then additionally, to address the expansion or the more available space in the future, if I can figure out which one's the laser button here. Okay, that's this one here, the green one? Okay. By the reason this west classroom building was built separated from the rest of the building with this breezeway in here was because the existing building was not sprinkled. Right. Now that we are putting sprinklers in it, potentially there is this room right here between the library and between the west classroom building that can be captured in the future, as well as enclosing this breezeway and reducing that safety hazard there. So another good reason yet for installing the fire sprinklers.
You've convinced me.
Thank you.
So what do you need?
If I could just jump in real quick, the Blythe Group is amazing. I worked with them in my past district, and I do trust when they say you can save money by doing it quicker, do it quicker. It's worth it.
I think we got through all the slides, did we not?
Not in order.
The entryway looks great. I love that. Isn't that?
It's awesome.
Terrific.
I really like this, or no, I shouldn't say artist rendition, but a rendition of what an inside view from that infill would look like, looking to the north.
Well, Shannon Bingham came to us last time he was here and said, you got to replace Fruita Monument High School and Grand Junction High School. And at the end of the day, if you can buy 20 years out of this building, that's a real win for this community. So well, we had talked, you know, the replacement of a high school is anywhere between 100 and 140 million. And we thought, I mean, arbitrary number, 20 million or whatever you put into that, you can update that, make it go longer and really do some significant things at a fraction of the cost of a new school would. So. And that's what you're doing right now. This design kind of starts that ball because you're tying everything down the spine of the building, and it feels
well, off the cuff,
not fragmented.
You put the 9th graders in your building, would you be over 2,000?
Right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we would be right in just under 2,000. We have about 1,380 in our building right now, and the freshmen over next door are 520.
So conceptually, Fruita is just exploding.
Well, you know, what's gonna have to happen is another school's gonna need to be added. Our attendance area boundary is gonna have to shrink. Somewhere.
Shrink while the community's growing.
Well, we've talked when we were looking at the bond and mill of what do we do with Grand Junction High? Do we go to the 1,800 limit or 2,000 limit, or scale it back to like a Palisade and then add another school? And we haven't had that discussion in any great detail, but those are things we'll have to. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Or 1,200. Yeah. So if you were able to build another school or two, then that addresses Fruita's overcrowding. That's right. That's right.
We appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
Great job.
There's a recommendation from the staff to approve a resolution to spend the 810,000 or not.
Is that our resolution coming up?
Yes.
It's the last one on the list.
So do we vote on that now?
No. It's coming up.
Coming? I know. I'm just asking.
9:30 tonight.
9:30?
By the way, this is Amy Davis's birthday. She's
Happy
not going to be here much
birthday.
longer. And we need her here to vote. So if you keep talking, she's going to leave and we're going to not have enough guys to vote for you.
Out of here. I gotta go to the band extravaganza.
Thanks, guys. That was great.
Thank you. 43?
That's good news. All right, where are we at now?
I think we're wrapping up the superintendent's report. Something I want to mention real quick, something we're really excited about is we are adding all-day kindergarten out in Loma, starting on Monday, as we had more READ Act money come in this year than expected, and we had an opportunity where they had a plan and an extra room out there. And we found an excellent teacher to work out there to be funded through the READ Act funds. So we've got it starting on Monday. We'll have 52 students who will not have a half-day program this year. They will all have a full-day program for the rest of the school year.
What are REDAC funds?
So READ Act funds are funded through the State Department for students. It's based off how many students in K through 3 score in the red, and the red means you're not proficient reading yet through the DIBELS assessment. So all that information goes to the state, and the state then cuts us a check for based on how many students are in the red. And it's double in part with more money was received than expected, but also we had some carry forward from last year that has to be spent on early interventions in K through 3. So you can spend it to, you know, add another intervention teacher or buy some programming, curriculum, what have you. Or in this case, you can add another teacher so that then you can create an all-day program for
Was that
kindergarten.
designated towards Loma? How did that decision get made?
So Loma had the space, Loma had the plan. Loma falls in a gray zone between, you know, a very affluent school with lots of money and a very poor school with a lot of title money. They're in this middle zone, so they don't get a lot from either end. And they have the space, and they have a plan, and they have a really strong staff ready to go. So we're rolling with it. And there's not too many schools left out there that don't have some level of a full-day program. So we're planning for that because ideally we'd like to get there in time for next year. Especially if Amendment 73 passes and there's full funding for full-day kindergarten. We need to get there. There's a couple of tight spots, like Rimrock is really tight. Appleton's tight, but Corey, the principal out there, figured it out. He figured out how he could fit in a full-day program for kindergarten. So the principals are thinking about it, and we were able to make it happen at Loma, so we're pretty excited about that. Thanks, and that's it for superintendent report.
Okay. We need a motion to approve the consent agenda items.
Second? Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and next we have second reading to adopt. J1A is the occupational medicine, that's workman's comp, and J1B is the school business partnerships, that's marketing, advertising, and things they can and cannot do. And we need a motion to pass those.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
And then J2, we need a motion to pass for the approval for Fruita Monument, the presentation we had for the $830,000 they need to.
I move we approve agenda item J-2, resolution to approve Fruita Monument High School remodel as presented tonight, not to exceed $830,000.
Second?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
And that brings us to the board open discussion. Is there any open discussion?
And I'll really talk fast. I really didn't know it was your birthday. That's not fair. I'll buy you a beer, though, afterwards, if you'd like. So I got a couple things. I bring up an old and probably squirmy subject again, and I had an opportunity to have lunch with Brian Davidson, who tells me he's pretty convinced that Monument and Monument Health can provide a plan for our employees at a great discount at St. Mary's Hospital for the same cost as the employees get now. And I think we should really consider going forward if we can offer two different plans to the staff and employees of School District 51. We ought to take that up, and that's not tonight, but that's just what I think. I've also asked Terry Wells to clear a calendar event to sort of have a workshop session with the town board of Fruita. Mike Bennett has called me and talked a little bit, and the town council out there would like to talk to the school board about just the growing pains that they have and the number of building permits they're issuing and where they see growth going and all that. They meet on Tuesday nights. They have 3 meetings in October, the last one being the 30th. We don't have a board meeting on the 30th, which is a Tuesday. And I'd like you all to at least think about joining the Town Council of Fruita for an hour on that particular Tuesday night. So,
I have a question about the healthcare issue that you brought up. So, I assume you're talking about next year, correct? Because we're already sort of set for our policy this year, what we're doing.
Yeah,
about 2019.
I suspect from a business standpoint that they'd love it this year, but I don't think that's any sort of condition or contingency or anything else. They just think that they can provide a health care plan for the same price as the community as we're paying now. And it may be a little different, it may not be, but it would be just a choice that our employees could have next year.
Well, and it just seems like we ought to start a process following a protocol, whatever that is, because I'm not exactly sure what that is, of how do we have an RFP for a consultant, and how does that play out with information, and not just those two entities, but anyone else who wants it. I mean, if we're going to have a fair sort of vetting of entities, it should be whoever wants to put forward something and not necessarily just including those two, although they're certainly the two largest, or the two most likely folks to come to the table. But you know what I mean? We ought to have a mapped out process by how we're going to do this, starting sometime late this year, so that when we get to July, we've thought about it, we've had the right conversations, we have the right information, we have objective data, and we don't have issues of people feeling like they didn't have their say.
And I tell you that more than likely Phil's going to tell you that they tried to do this process this last year with sort of an even up playing field. I think we were way late in the ball game, and Monument, quite honestly, did not, chose not to submit But I'm attracted, if I were an employee, I would be attractive if I was an employee in this district of having a choice of health care plans for the same premium that the district's paying. And if that's really a probability or a possibility with the same cost to the district, I just think we ought to look at it, and I agree, we should have a process going forward.
Totally agree, but I think the lesson learned is to make sure that we all feel comfortable with the process.
I agree.
And that is sort of standard format.
I think that I should go meet with Dr. Davidson and tell him what we need. In truth, all we really need is a price for services rendered. We don't
He gave me a price and a discount, and I think it's well thought out. So if you think that initial meeting would be helpful, I
think that's the way to proceed. We are interested in obtaining services through our self-insurance plan. We're not interested in buying the monument as an insured product.
And I agree with that, but if we can be self-insured and there's two different products out there and one comes from community and one comes from monument, and it's a choice that our employees can have and it's the same premium to our employees and it's the same cost to the district, I don't know why we don't do that. That's all.
We would really dearly love to have St. Mary's as one of our healthcare providers.
So it's just an ongoing, be underneath my saddle. I think it's politically the right thing to do, and I think it's the right thing to do for our staff. And I'm just going to have trouble getting off it if.
It's okay. I can meet with Dr. Davidson tomorrow for lunch, and we can work this out.
Well, I wouldn't just assume that, but if you think you can meet with him tomorrow for lunch, go get it.
Okay.
Any other open discussion? So our future meetings coming up on September 22nd, we have our coffee with the board at the factory. That would be this Saturday. October 2nd, we have our board work session. October 16th, our board business meeting.
I actually do have a question. So on Saturday, what is our format and what are we doing?
The formats that we've done in the past, and they've been successful, is to have none.
Okay.
And it's really casual, and we've sort of announced that we don't have a format. We're here to listen, not to talk, and there's no administration there, and there may be press there. It's open to the press, but it's just, what's on your mind. And so.
What are the boundaries? What are the time boundaries? And we're starting at 9, correct?
It's 9, usually.
We've gone an hour and a half or 2 hours on each one of them, but, all of us don't have to stay, and if you've got to go, and, it's.
Roughly 9
We have
to
9
11.
to 11.
Okay.
But I think we'll call it at 11, but I know in the past I had to leave after an hour and a half for another appointment, so.
What I don't think sometimes we do enough of is what we did with public comments tonight, which is against what happened tonight on the busing situation isn't a normal situation, but I hate to spend a Saturday morning in so many ways, but it's a chance to just chat with folks, and I found them always to be fun. So.
Sure.
All right. Okay, we need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Second.
Yes.
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 Thank you, Mr.
Very nice.